Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right. What up? Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Tuesday, December 15th. 349 days in the new year, just 16 days left. Wow. For KJCR and the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet, I'm your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. Let's get this cracking. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Here, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. And tonight, we have a very special guest from the Great White North. Our friends. Special guest Bob Mitchell. And Close Encounters of the Canadian Kind? Could be. His new book is What If? Man, I got the feeling we're going to spend the whole night on chapter 1. Unbelievable. Unbelievable book. Tomorrow night we're going to have Jim Mars right here. We're going to be discussing the worldwide media conspiracy. Call-in number is 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black and the number 14. Thursday night is Fader Night. At the bottom of the hour tonight, I'm going to bring in Ronnie McMullen of Life Change Tea. He's going to tell me what I'm doing right now and what you could be doing for yourself. And then we're going to spin that conversation off into some stuff that we normally talk about here on Fade to Black. So at the bottom of the hour, Ronnie McMullen is going to be right here. Now, I want to thank the good folks over at Studio Dome, by the way. They sent me a really nice Christmas gift, and I will be talking. You know what? I'll send out some pics and stuff next week. But in the meantime, you can go to the Studio Dome link right now at jimmychurchradio.com and get their special Christmas package, $99. It's normally $299, 60% off, over 60% off, $200 off, and get free shipping. And just use that promo code Jimmy and get her done for that special someone. Go and do it right now. Everybody over at Studio Dome loves the Fade or Not family, and that deal is just for you. I got an email today from Alien Snowfest, from Trevor over there, saying that for the Fade or Nots, he's going to go ahead and extend. He's going to go ahead and do it through the holidays. Yes, $179. It ended today. And he shot me an email this morning going, dude, just rock that thing, man. I love the Fade or Nots. And I said, okay, all right, cool. So just go to the Alien Snowfest logo right now. The banner is at jimmychurchradio.com, and it is extended through the holidays, $179 for a full weekend pass. Best deal. Go and do it. That's Jason Martell, George Norrie, Linda Moulton Howe, Tom Danheiser, Stanton Friedman, Micah Hanks, Mike Barrett, Chase Kletsky, Craig Campabasso, Marshall Clarfeld, Richard Dolan, and yours truly. $179. Go do it. Come hang out with us. Get some skiing in. Hang out. You know what we do in the evenings. We're going to do some of that too. All of you Fade or Nots, we're going to have a Fade or Not party. And I'm also hosting the luncheon that Saturday too as well. So come and hang out with us. All right. And with that, you know, I just got to do this. So I'm going to warm up Twitter right now. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. All right. Man, I just got all warm and fuzzy. And with that, let's get this show cracking. Today, Dave Clark of the Dave Clark 5 is 73. Remember that song, Glad All Over? And didn't Quiet Riot do a cover of that? Stuart Townsend today is 43. He's great, by the way. And Paul Simonon of The Clash, bass player, is 60. Where did the time go? Tim Conway today is 82. And for those that are here in L.A., I don't know if you get his show across the country, but Tim Conway Jr. is on KFI out here, AM 640 in the evenings, and he's got a great show. And he sounds just like his dad, by the way. And I love Tim Conway Jr. Love Tim Conway. Happy birthday, Pops. 82 years old. And one of these days, because we're kind of stablemates, over there at KFI AM 640, I swear I'm going to walk in the studio. I'm going to go and interrupt Tim's show one of these days and jump on the air because that guy is just amazing. He's got a great show out here. And also the original King of Cool, Don Johnson, is 66. And with Don, Miami Vice, the show was cool. It was a cool show. And then, Don kind of got a bad rap. But he turned out to be a great actor, honestly. A great actor and a funny guy. And now we just kind of look back and it's nothing but mad respect, isn't it, for Don Johnson. Today, he's 66. Happy birthday, Don. Our dead guy's birthday today is Nero. Yeah, that Nero, 37 to 68 AD. How'd you like to have a birthday like that? 37 AD to 68 AD. Died at the age of 30. Roman emperor from 54 to 68 AD. And the last in the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Nero was adopted by his granduncle Claudius to become his heir and successor and succeeded to the throne in 54 following his death. In 64 AD, most of Rome was destroyed in the Great Fire of Rome, which Nero himself had started in order to clear land for his enormous palace, and is often associated with tyranny and extravagance. He was over the top. He's known for many executions, too, by the way, including his mother and the murder by poison of his stepbrother, Britannicus. The Roman Senate had declared Nero a public enemy, and that it was their intention, I'm not making this up, to execute him by beating him to death. And the news of that was brought by a courier. And he ended up preparing himself for suicide, but he chickened out. He couldn't do it. And then he heard the sound of approaching horsemen. And that drove Nero to face the end. And he just couldn't do it. He couldn't bring himself to commit suicide. So he turned to his private secretary and said, dude, you gotta do this for me. And he did. Nero's final words were, too late. This is fidelity, end quote. And that is a true story. Man alive. Unbelievable. All right. See, I was going to light up Twitter, and you know what? I'm just going to do this because I'm in a holiday mood. When you think of Christmas and you got all of that Christmas music that is coming on the radio, right? They started, the day after Thanksgiving. What is it? What's that one Christmas song that does it for you? What's the Christmas song? And it could be the Christmas song. Nat King Cole, Mel Torme. That's a good one. That might even do it for me, actually. Christmas Time Is Here is great. For me, also, it's the entire Vince Guaraldi trio, Charlie Brown Christmas. That CD from beginning to end gets it done for me. So I'm going to light it up. Well, what's your favorite Christmas song? Let's do this, man. Hey, did you guys catch Childhood's End last night? Arthur C. Clarke. Did you catch it on Sci-Fi? We did. And I didn't know this until today. Rita let me know that it is 6 episodes, 3 nights in a row. So after the show tonight, we've got a DVR. We're going to go and do episodes 3 and 4. I guess it's a 6-parter, 2 episodes per night. It's a weird way to do things, but that's the way they're doing it. Now, got a bunch of email today from a bunch of different people, but also Renee. And I said to Rita last night and also today, I said, man, you know, I read the book 20 years ago, read it a couple of times. And Rita knows I'm a big Arthur C. Clarke guy. And I've got a bunch of his books. And I've reread all of the Rama series 5 times each. And including, you know, all of it, the Sentinel. And I get the Arthur C. Clarke novels now. They run like one big book in my brain. I get things confused. I do. I really do. And with Childhood's End, I was watching it last night, and I remembered, well, I don't want to give it away in case anybody hasn't seen last night's episode or hasn't read the book, so enjoy the series. But I started to remember a couple of things, and I said to her, I said, man, there's some things that are funky here. So they have taken a little bit of liberty to go, and I remembered, I don't want to give it away, but I remembered the UN connection, and that wasn't there last night. I was like, and I couldn't remember, I couldn't put it together, but I have remembered more things today, and Renee just wrote me 3 emails today. Man, how could they do this? How could they do this? It's such a great book. Well, look, go and enjoy the series. If you haven't read the books or read the book, then you're going to get one view of it. I would suggest, just like Stephen King in The Shining or 2001 or whatever, where the book is different from the movie, go back and read the book, because the book is a life changer. It's really, really well done. And if my memory serves, I think that was Arthur C. Clarke's first book, and it might be his best. Might be. I'm still holding Rama, the Rama series up there pretty high, though, because that's pretty amazing stuff. So anyway, it was really good, though, and I did enjoy it. There were some things that I had issues with, but to me, I think the story needs to be told. Now, last night is just the first part, and in Childhood's End, the original version of it, if my memory's right, it was like a part 1, part 2, part 3. So I think that's what they're doing here. So they set up stage 1, right? And then tonight we'll have the middle part, and then tomorrow night will be the big grand finale, Childhood's End. And there you go. Okay, let's see here. Man, I just lit up Twitter. Vince Guaraldi, absolutely. Absolutely. People are with me on that. Grandma got run over by a reindeer. The Muppets Xmas with John Denver. Really? I could go with that. Yeah. See, everybody agree. Yeah, everybody's with me on the Charlie Brown Christmas. Cheech and Chong, Santa Claus and his old lady. That is actually pretty good. Mistress for Christmas, AC/DC. Little Drummer Boy coming in from Ryan. Dennis says, yeah, Vince Guaraldi. Ant in Oz, he didn't comment. So John Lennon, so this is Christmas. I'm with you there. Little Drummer Boy from Dew Sky. Oh, Holy Night. Nurse Nancy, that's going to come in tomorrow night. I've got a really cool version of that, a heavy metal version we're going to do tomorrow night. And so there you go. That's Twitter. Thank you for all of that, everybody. And I'm sure there is more. Santa and his magic dust. Oh, man, you got to love the 70s. All right, let's do it. On this day in history, 1988, I'll never, ever forget the news when this broke. Legendary singer James Brown, also known as the Godfather of Soul and the hardest working man in show business, becomes an inmate, number 155413, at the State Park Correctional Institute in South Carolina. The police chase and guns and PCP and everything else that was involved. He was sentenced to 6 years and 6 months in prison. Fader fact: whenever Prince Charles visits the U.S., write this down, everybody, his Secret Service code name is Unicorn. And that is a Fader fact. All of the news that you know nothing about. Woke up today to more craziness here in Southern California. An email threat shut down the Los Angeles school system. 900 and some odd plus buildings. And it turns out it was merely a hoax. And this is according to Congressman Adam Schiff of California. And he tweeted out, citing investigators who were working on it to determine the legitimacy of the email threat, said it's a hoax. The threat in Los Angeles, which was emailed to authorities early this morning, was traced to an email address in Germany. Hours earlier, schools in New York City faced a similar threat, which was promptly debunked by officials as also being a hoax. Now, looking into this, on any given day, running the Los Angeles Unified School District is a complex operation. It has more than 650,000 students. Think about that. It's got more students in the school system than nearly every city in the United States. Think about that for a second. And that's enrolled in kindergarten through the 12th grade, with some 250,000 more in adult education programs. That's 1 million students. LAUSD gets $31 per student in attendance per day. If a student does not show up, the school is out of that money, while having to maintain payroll for staff. In addition, maintaining a 96% attendance throughout the year gets the school, depending on the size, a minimum of a $20,000 grant. Now, here's the math problem. How much money does the LAUSD lose today because of this threat? Think about that. Now, unless there's some type of provision protecting the school or schools when terrorism is involved, that's a serious loss of dosh. And now there are rumors that were going around today that it was called in by a student. It turns out it was an email that came in from Germany. Now, if there is a provision of such protecting the school, a minimum of $25 million of taxpayers' money is lost regardless, right? Are they going to pay the schools when there's no students in attendance? 25 mil down the tubes. Are the schools going to lose $25 million because they didn't have students in attendance that day because of a threat? 25 mil down the tubes. How many parents today didn't go to work because of their children not being able to go to school? It's a crazy thing. We're talking about 650,000 plus students, 940 buildings that had to be searched. It's a big deal. Now, this morning I had a conference call with, it doesn't matter. I was on a conference call, and one of the guys came out on the call late. Why? His kids couldn't go to school. And there he had this dilemma, and he had to go and pick them up, and everything it just turned everybody's lives upside down today here in Los Angeles. And the other strange thing was that although this was live on, all the mass media networks and here in LA and all the news programs, and everybody was freaking out, by the end of the day, it wasn't even in the news streams. Pretty interesting situation. Freaked us out. That's what this whole terrorism thing has come down to. All right. The Paris San Bernardino terror attacks have spurred bipartisan calls for monitoring social networks like Twitter and Facebook. That's right. In a unanimous vote this evening, today, the U.S. House of Representatives approved a bill calling for closer monitoring of social media in efforts against terrorism. The bill, sponsored by Representative Ted Poe of Texas, is titled the Combat Terrorist Use of Social Media Act of 2015. It has now moved on to the Senate. The bill seeks a publicly viewable evaluation of social media's role in radicalization and information on how terrorists use online tools, and recommendations on how to disrupt that use, and classified information on what intelligence value social media analysis provides and what training is given. Interesting, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. A restaurant in Zhangjiagang, one of China's many smoggy, foggy, gnarly, dirty cities, is in trouble for trying to toss an air cleaning fee onto its customers. angry diners started noticing the bonus surcharge after the restaurant installed an air purifying system. That's right. And they complained to city officials. And they complained about the surcharge part, by the way, not the purified air part. Visibility in recent weeks has been about a football field's length. But Zhang's Consumer Pricing Bureau decided that the restaurant couldn't sell filtered air because, unlike water, diners can't choose to have it. Interesting. I'd pay for it. I would go to Yeah, I think I would ignore the surcharge if I could just go to a restaurant and, breathe clean air. A security researcher says he has discovered usernames and email addresses after finding 4 different IP addresses associated with the software's developer. The makers of MacKeeper, a suite of software that claims to make Macs more secure and stable, is cleaning up its act after a breach exposed the personal information for millions, up to 13 million of its users. Chrome Tech, which makes the software, acknowledged yesterday that a hole in its security exposed the usernames. Is this thing on? This is the best. I love doing the news. Exposed the usernames, email addresses, and other personal information for its 13 million customers. The company said it fixed it within hours. It's security software for Mac that they sold. It was announced, the breach was announced Sunday on Reddit and allegedly was fixed by yesterday. On Friday, this past Friday, the Navy's brand new $362 million ship broke down and had to be towed back to port only after 3 weeks in service. Yes, it is the USS Milwaukee. It's an unbelievable-looking ship, by the way. It was commissioned on November 21st. It's an advanced combat ship. It's one of the new LCSs, and according to the Navy Times, citing a report from the Navy, the Milwaukee was transiting past Halifax, Canada, when it suffered an engineering casualty. You know what it suffered? A clogged oil filter. And it shut down the ship completely. The exact cause is still under investigation, but the preliminary evidence points to fine metal debris collected in the lube oil filter. I'm not making this up, folks. A $362 million ship doesn't have a subsystem just in case the oil filter gets clogged, that you can't route the oil somewhere else. And apparently this metal debris went through the entire engine, shut it down. It was done. Now, the cause of the metal debris at this time is unknown. They don't know how that got in there, but the debris is thought to have been responsible for the ship's ultimate and complete lack of movement. Merry Christmas, everybody. It's going to be a great show tonight. When I come back after the break, Ronnie McMullen of Get the Tea, Life Change Tea, is going to join us. We're going to have a quick conversation. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. And then after that, top of the hour, Bob Mitchell is going to be here. Close Encounters of the Canadian Kind. And we love our friends to the north. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be back right after this.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church.
Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This week is going to be great. It's just going to be amazing. And I was just watching Twitter, and it hit me. Tonight we have Bob Mitchell, Close Encounters of the Canadian Kind, and his new book, What If? Tomorrow night, Jim Mars is going to be right here discussing the worldwide media conspiracy. Thursday night is Fader night. And then I was just looking down at Twitter, and Dew Sky just tweeted, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got 6 nights of Jimmy this week. He's going to be on Coast for a couple of nights, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. So, yeah, we've got a full week this week, and then Thursday night's Fader night. Friday night, I'm back over on Coast, and my guest at Coast is going to be our good friend, Micah Hanks. And that is Friday night, followed by Open Line. So it's a full-on UFO night. It's going to be great with Micah Hanks on Coast. And then Saturday night, I'm back over at Coast, and my guest is Leo Zagami. And we'll be discussing the Illuminati and everything live from Rome. So, yes, 6 nights, no rest for the wicked. But I'd like to welcome back to the program Ronnie McMullen. He is the head cheese and the big kahuna of Life Change Tea. The website is getthetea.com. And all you Fadernauts, please give a big warm welcome to Ronnie McMullen. Ronnie, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Jimmy?
It's great to have you back on the program. You know, it's just, you're a member of the family. So it's like, having my brother come in. And it's great. I just feel great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's getting close to Christmas time, and people are in good moods, and that always makes me in a good mood.
Yeah, out here it got to 32 last night in Burbank, and I got to tell you, that's a rude awakening for Southern California. It's like, okay, summer is officially, it ain't coming back. That's it. We got to ride this out. But, yeah, it got down to 32.
It makes you check the antifreeze in your car.
It literally, here in Southern California, it does. And there are some days, Ronnie, and I know you know Southern California really well, but there are some days where we wake up, and I know it's hard to believe, but we have frost on our windshields. And you've got to go out and start up the car and get the defroster going. And I know that, and I feel bad talking about that here when there are people around the country shoveling snow in their driveway, dealing with stuff, closed schools, scraping their windshields, engine block warmers, all of that. And they hear me talk like that, and it's just not right, and it's not cool. But it got to 32 last night. Okay, so there you go. We suffered through it. Oh,
well,
man.
the spoiled Southern Californians they've got to put a jacket on. It must be tough.
It's man. See. Okay. Tease me. I'd rather do that because if I complain, it's just not right. Inevitably, somebody will start tweeting really bad stuff right about now. So let's change the subject. As you know, and I announced to everybody a couple of weeks ago, Rita and I are in about 10 days into a hardcore 2-week dosage, and we're taking 4 products. And I wanted you to, because I can say what the products are, but I want you to help the audience through exactly what we're doing with ourselves and what these products do. And the first one that I want to talk about, and I'm holding the bottle here, is Colostrum LD. And this, what I had said last week on the program, I've defined it kind of like a miracle supplement. Am I wrong with saying that? What is Colostrum LD?
Colostrum LD, obviously the colostrum and this is from cows, but if we have, those of us that have children, we understand that when we feed our children and they're breastfed, the first thing they get out of the breast is colostrum. When it comes to animals, if they don't have and get on the mother immediately, then they die. So that's how important colostrum is to the animals. And it really is with humans as well. Most people don't know this, but if you were not breastfed, your chances of having an autoimmune disease are very, very high. So having colostrum is God's gift to man, really, it really is. In fact, many of the foreign countries, they would tote around their cow, and not for just the milk, but for the colostrum. So the colostrum is like a superfood, you might say. It helps boost and balance and maintain proper immune function. It helps eliminate harmful pathogens, and it fights infection. I want to say that again. So if you have infection or you have problems, this stuff is like the miracle cure. I hate that word cure, but it really does help you. And it protects and heals. Here's what I like about it. It protects and heals the GI and the stomach lining, which is basically leaky gut syndrome. So for those of you out there that are having a major problem with your stomach, or you just go, oh, this must be indigestion, we always blame it on something else, you take this colostrum, and let me tell you something, your life is good. And I had a lot of stomach problems. I started taking the colostrum, and man, I'm telling you, within 3 days of just taking 2 drinks a day, it changed my life. And so a lot of people, if you have autoimmune disease, this is going to help you big time. For those that are in weight training and you want strength, this was given to the Australian Olympic team, and they found themselves in a winning streak to the point of another country sued them to say, you're using drugs. And it's like, no, this is not drugs. It's a superfood that you guys could take yourself as well. So powerful. I couldn't say enough about it. It's that good.
Well, one of the things, and Rita as my witness on this, one of the things over at the house that I've always been well stocked in was big bottles of antacid, and the chewable whatever, and then also the pink liquid, and I was constantly. I had a fear of running out of it. You know what I mean? Because I would have, pains and things. And ever since I started the tea and this, it's been over a month now. I haven't done any of it. And I'm talking about I would take it just because, all of those antacid tablets. I would do it before I went to bed. I would do it when I got up in the morning, and I haven't done it for a month. And it's crazy. I've never had this kind of turnaround myself physically in my life. It's a remark. That's why I was calling it some kind of miracle pill. And
that's what I'm glad to hear about. In fact, as the kahuna of Life Change Tea, when I go on a radio show, it doesn't matter who the talk show host is, one of my things is they have to try it, because I don't want them talking out the side of their mouth saying, oh, yeah, it's so great, you need to go to get this, and they've never even tried it. And I've had many different hosts say, "Oh, we'll go ahead and do your product and we'll do this," but I said, "Well, are you going to take it?" "No." "Well, then I don't want to be a part of you." And so when I hear things like, Jimmy, when you're saying, "Hey, this is changing me around," it just excites me because this is happening all the time, so that people really understand this is not just something you got to go buy to help whatever, blah, blah, blah. This is going to help them. So not only, as a sponsor of your show, and that's helping you, it's helping the show, it's helping me, whatever, it's helping the people. And that's what it's all about, is getting the people well and getting them to feel good. So I love that part of the job.
Well, you know what's funny, and I'll throw you under the bus. I'll throw myself under the bus right now for everybody. But you and I had a conversation a month before we even brought you on as a sponsor. And that was, I was going to take the product myself, and that's it. And if I felt great and I wanted to, stand behind it, then we have a conversation. But until then, we don't. And did we not have that conversation, Ronnie?
We did. And it's to me, it was a wonderful thing because I know what the product's going to do. But you didn't. And so, and it tells me a lot about the host when the host says, "Well, if this doesn't work, I don't want to be a part of this." Well, that's awesome. That says integrity, and life is about integrity in my book.
We have a mutual friend that went on the Super Strength Tea after I did, right? And you know who I'm talking about. We don't need to say his name right now.
I do.
But it was so funny. He called me up. "Hey, Jimmy, man, I'm 2 days into this." And I go, "How you feeling?" He goes, "Man, how you feeling?" I said, "I feel great." He goes, "I feel great too, but man, this stuff really works, doesn't it?" And it was funny. He was so happy, but also was totally freaked out that it did everything that it was supposed to do. And if it does what it's supposed to do, you're going to see some results, is what I want to say. You're going to see some results quickly. And there was something...
Regular as a baby bird.
Yes, immediately. Now, Rita she's kind of scaring me with her addiction to these products because her mood has changed. And I know women are different from men and so forth, but she said to me a couple of nights ago, and I'm not making this up, everyone, just listen to me for a second. She's like, "What is in? I just don't get it. I feel good. I can think. My head is clear." Now, we're doing 3 different supplements plus the tea at the same time, but her mood has changed. And well, so is mine to a degree, but for her to say it, because she is, she's skeptical. She goes on all kinds of, has tried over the years different programs, and it didn't go anywhere for her. She's been doing this now for a month, and I caught her this morning packing pills in her purse, and I was like, "What are you doing?" She's going, "I got to take my pills." So let's talk about Moringa. This is now we're doing 3 different supplements plus the tea. We're doing the Artiquil, we're doing the colostrum, and Moringa. What does the Moringa do for me?
The Moringa is it basically will balance your blood sugars. It has gram for gram like 4 times more than vitamin C. It's more potent than potassium that you get, and it's like a super pill, and it comes from the Moringa tree in India. And it's one of my favorite products. It's again like a super. It's almost like a multivitamin, but it's not. It's its own baby, and it's its own tree. So we are supposed to be fed off of things of the earth, not off of GMO garbage and everything else. So it's very exciting, and it helps you think. It does give power to the brain. And what you're experiencing and your wife's experiencing is the fact that when we're detoxing, this is the real super strength tea, what it does mostly. When we detox, we're detoxing of the chemicals and the garbage that we're getting from the air, the water, the foods that are messed up, preservatives, blah, blah, blah. And when we detox, we think clearer. We have more energy. You're not supposed to have this stuff in your body. And so these products help you think better, help you energize, and obviously help you detox. Tox are toxins, which are toxic. So we're having these chemicals and these garbage in us, and it doesn't make us work right. It's like shooting your dog with some kind of drug or something where he's kind of just lethargic and what have you. This is what's happening to human beings, and we don't realize how important our food is. And so, in the day, many years ago, supplements weren't around because we didn't need them. Now we have to have them to survive because our food chain has been changed. So this is something really powerful, and I think is a godsend. It's a wonderful product, and people love it. And I mean, literally, people will call and say, it's not I like the tea, it's I love the tea. That's a strong word.
Yes, it is. It is. Somebody just tweeted, Cortana just tweeted, what about people that are allergic to dairy with the colostrum LD? Is that a concern?
It's a great question. And I believe that people that are allergic to dairy, first of all, that means you have a major autoimmune disease, and this colostrum is organic, and it will help you with that and turn that around. So, no, you don't have to. Like drinking regular milk producers are going to hate me, will put holes in your stomach. Okay, colostrum, natural organic colostrum is meant to fill the holes in your stomach. So this is why you're feeling good. Now, another guidance too. At getthetea.com, we sell the 1 pound bag, and we also sell the pills. And the pills are great. Pills are for maintenance. This is like you're feeling pretty good, got a little bit of problem, take your pills, you'll be good. If you're a hurting individual where you go, oh my gosh, you double up after certain foods and like you have an autoimmune disease that you have stomach and gut problems you have, you need to get on the bag and follow the directions. 3 heaping spoonfuls in 4 or 5 ounces of water. Drink that all by itself twice a day, once before you go to bed. Your body heals right before you go to bed. So sometimes when you take supplements right before you go to bed, it's a real good connection because you're resting your body. Your body's meant to rest, and then you're having this supplement go in and help you. So it's helping you to heal. And when you look at the colostrum deal, it helps stimulate wound healing. So this is also in the GI tract as well. So this is something where people are going to go, oh my gosh, the people that are buying it go, oh my God, this is so wonderful. Thank you. They're excited. Anybody has stomach aches out there, you know what it's like to have pain. So this is something really wonderful.
Well, I'm a big, I'll go on the record right now. The audience knows I'm a big cereal guy. Okay. I love my cereal. And so that must have been causing some of my symptoms over the years because I'm a cereal guy. You remember Seinfeld? He'd have all those boxes of cereal in his apartment. That was me. Well, that is me right now. I'll admit it, man. I got Captain Crunch over at the house right now. I've got Frosted Flakes over at the house right now. I've got Sugar Pops they call it Corn Pops now, over at the house. I like my childhood.
We have our weaknesses.
I do. So is that
we have our weaknesses? So if you're going to do something bad, you've got to counterfeit, go on the other side, and you got to do something good. So this is a way that you can still have your cereal, but you can fix yourself a little bit. And what happens is when you start feeling better, pretty soon stuff that makes you go down, you kind of start straying away from. And it's an automatic thing. It's not somebody telling you what to do. We don't like to, as human beings, be told what to do. We like to be guided into what to do. So that's the difference.
Now, the third supplement that I'm taking, and we're doing this every day, everybody. We're doing all 4. We're doing the tea, and we're doing these 3 supplements, is Artiquil. This is for immune support. What is this doing for me?
This is, you take Artiquil, and you basically don't, in fact, people are going to hate this, but it's actually out, so we are back ordered on it. So we don't know when we're getting it in. So it's a tough thing. But here's what it does. What it does is it's basically an autoimmune fighter, and it's basically you don't get sick. It's like flus and colds. It goes after viruses. It attacks viruses. And really, something else to know about the Life Change tea as well is when you take the tea and you're cleaning toxins out all the time, what automatically happens is you don't get as sick as much as you normally do. And so, like my family, we've been on it 8, almost 9 years. We're very rarely sick. And so your viruses that come along you still can get them, but the chances of getting a full-blown cold, a full-blown flu, whatever, the chances of getting that are a lot slimmer. So for those of you that want to be well, making sure that your body is clean all the time is a great thing. And a lot of people also take Life Change Tea or any of these products, and they get well, they feel better, oh boy, yay, and then they don't take them anymore. And that's kind of like going to a car wash, getting your car washed, and go, man, what a beautiful car. I didn't know it was red, And then months later, you don't wash it, and, pretty soon somebody's writing "wash me" on the back of your windshield.
Right.
Same thing with the body.
Okay, I got a couple of questions that have come in. Do you have any anti-inflammatory products?
And we have a joint aid, and it works pretty well. I usually don't push the joint aid because everybody's body's different. So some people have had really good success with it, some people don't. So I really move more to the people that the products that where it's like a guarantee. It's like, oh my God, this is going to work. People say, oh, this doesn't work. Yeah, well, yes, it does. I already know it does. So the anti-inflammatory, I would say, would be definitely, and actually there's a little bit of that also in the colostrum LD as well. So that would help them as well.
And what was it called?
You got joint aid and then the colostrum LD.
Joint aid. Okay.
Joint aid, yeah.
And Kat just tweeted, please ask, I think she's talking about the colostrum LD. She says, please ask if it is known to help heal from damage caused by celiac disease. Am I saying that right?
It will help you. I'll just say it that way. It will help you.
Okay.
So, and celiac, I feel very bad for people with celiac disease. And celiac disease is kind of a one-up on gluten issues. So it's very painful, and it will help you. Completely heal you, I can't say that. And I'll say it again, I can't say that, but it will help you. So people with stomach aches and celiac, like for me, I'm gluten intolerant. The colostrum sometimes will very much help me when I've messed up and taken and had some gluten where I didn't know. So it will help balance that and make it better.
And can it help with IBS and Crohn's disease?
Crohn's, absolutely. The other one, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. IBS. Yeah, whenever somebody uses...
Oh, that's irritated bowel syndrome.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's why somebody uses...
like, these, hey, get the JC on the LD.
Yeah, exactly.
So I apologize to the listener, but yes, it will definitely help you. I have nothing but good to say about colostrum LD. It's powerful.
Now, I can't believe we just did that much time on the products because I had other plans for you tonight. I wanted to show the Fadernauts how bleeping cool you really are. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a couple of quick questions for you. Watch this, Fadernauts. Watch my man, Ronnie. Ronnie, what's your favorite UFO picture of all time that you think is the one?
A UFO picture that's the one. Wow, that's a big question. That's a big one. A UFO picture that's the one. It would probably be one that I saw with Colonel Wendell Stevens, and it was a ship. It was very clear and yet it had a little fuzz to it. You could tell it was not a made-up thing, and it was pretty incredible over some pine trees, and I think it was near Switzerland. So it was pretty interesting. Now,
notice that Ronnie just dropped the Wendell Stevens bomb right there. He knows what time it is. that is so cool. Okay, now when you look back at UFO history, we've all got our cases that probably not so famous, maybe cases that nobody has ever heard of. But when you look back in ufology, what's the one case that you like to present and you like to talk about?
I don't know if it's considered a case, but I'll just say this. When I went into and started, researching and stuff, obviously everybody knows about the Roswell cover-up and everything that went on with Roswell. Well, one of the things that most people don't know is there was a general His name was General McMullen. He was out of Texas, and he was a huge part of the cover-up for Roswell. And he's not mentioned very often. And so I always thought that was kind of an interesting thing, because obviously my last name is McMullen, and, somehow, some way, maybe and he also threw out his sons were fighter pilots. So it was just kind of an interesting fact, and I thought, interesting enough, here's a man that helped cover up Roswell, and later on in life, here's a man that was trying to uncover Roswell. So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
As we move forward in time, Ronnie, Roswell is, to me, gets more and more solid. You know what I mean? It doesn't get weaker. It hasn't fallen apart. It's gotten more and more solid. It's one of the only cases like it that there is, where we have direct Army interference and acknowledgement, media, the newspapers, press releases, witnesses. We have all of that in spades, and it hasn't gotten weaker. Don't you find that interesting, that is as much as we talk about it, it's because it's the one case that as time moves along, it only gets stronger. It hasn't been, I hate to use the word debunked, but it hasn't been shot down either.
No, it does get stronger. And when I used to go down there and speak in Roswell, I like motorcycles. It's one of my weaknesses. And so I was in a motorcycle shop, and I was talking to one of the local guys, and I was talking, I'm speaking over there at the Roswell, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, really? He says, you like the E.T. thing? Yeah. Well, he says, well, that's interesting. He says, because my father took pictures. He actually went out and saw the ship. And he says, it was a fact that there were bodies there. He says, and we had the pictures. I said, really? Now, whether he was telling the truth or not, but he was a local, and he says, we just don't talk too much about it, because there was such a cover-up, and he says, and they were threatening people with their life.
Did you go out to the crash site?
I did, and it's very interesting. Obviously not at the time, but yeah, I did, and it's very interesting. And there's a what do you say? There's a aura, or there's a something in Roswell for those that visit Roswell. I mean, I wouldn't suggest going there all the time, but it's weird. It's different. Maybe it's because of the underground stuff. I don't know, but it's interesting.
One last question. I wanted to say, there must be a vibe walking around. It must be trippy. I want to get this one last question. This is from Casey. He says, Jimmy, will it help with type 2 diabetes and blood pressure? Thanks.
Okay. Diabetes, it will help a little teeny bit. I have blood sugar problems, so it helps me a little bit, but it's not going to super, boom, bam, you're going to take this and all of a sudden your blood sugar is going to be perfect. There's no miracle cure for diabetes, but diabetes is a part of an autoimmune disease. So when you take this product all the time, it's going to start bringing it down. Hydrogen is a real big key. Hydrogen water, if you can find water with hydrogen in it. In fact, Get the Tea has a connection with Echo Water, and it puts hydrogen in the water. That will bring your blood sugars down. So as far as when it comes to diabetes, I would say that it would help, but it's not going to just boom. And as far as blood pressure goes, garlic and parsley is going to be a great thing for taking blood pressure down.
Ronnie McMullen, thank you so much, my brother. And I want you to just...
Thank you.
No. Thank you. Go to getthetea.com. Mention Jimmy Church. When you call in, mention Jimmy Church. Get yourself some free shipping. Ronnie loves the Fader Knots. Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you so much. And also let them know there's a sale going on, and it's right on the front page, and you can actually get free tea if you buy your colostrum, and you can get an extra month supply of tea if you buy 2 months. So it's all good. GetTheTea.com. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Ronnie. Have a great, safe night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Ronnie McMullen. That's a cool guy right there. I told you, Fader Knots. That is a cool guy. Thank you, Ronnie. Go to GetTheTea.com. And I didn't know that they were having a special going on, so go there right now and get a free month supply. This is Fade to Black. When I come back after the break, we'll be joined with Bob Mitchell. his new book, What If? I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be back right after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
People love to shop. What if you could shop and it was actually good for you? What if you could actually purchase items that bettered your life? What goes into your body is important to what quality of life you have. How about shopping for items that better your health? GetTheT.com is that shopping place. We're not only tea, even though that's our number one seller, we are about helping your health. There's Colostrum LD for those of you with autoimmune troubles. The product helps your stomach get on track. GI problems produce pain. Get relief with Colostrum LD. How about some fat burners? Or maybe some joint aid? Or a power cleanse? There's so much to tell you with very little time. So get help, health-wise, at GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Or you can call our friendly operators at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Get help and relief by going shopping. Shop at GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Serving people with great products for over 8 years. GetTheT.com.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Hello, Fadernauts. Are you looking for that perfect gift for the holidays? Well, check this out. The Studio Dome surround sound system, featuring the Studio Dome 1 SD1 and the Studio Boombox SBB wireless Bluetooth speakers, is the perfect way to get surround sound without all of the cable headaches. With its own hard shell custom carrying case for taking your surround sound experience on the go. Each hard shell case comes packed with an SBB, 2 SD1s, cables, and power. Just in time for Christmas. It's just $99. And you use the promo code Jimmy and you get yourself some free shipping. Once again, Studio Dome brings you the best Christmas deal on the net. Anywhere. Just go to the Studio Dome banner, jimmychurchradio.com, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come and hang out. We burn through 5,000 tweets a night, and it's the best place. We don't bite. Come and hang out at JChurchRadio. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow night right here we have Jim Mars We're going to be discussing the worldwide media conspiracy. He's always back at Christmas, and that's what we'll be doing tomorrow night. And then Thursday night is Fader Night. Call in. And then Friday night, I'm over at Coast. My guest will be Micah Hanks. Saturday night, I'm back at Coast, and my guest will be Leo Zagami. But tonight, Bob Mitchell has covered crime, police, general news, municipal politics, sports for the Toronto Star for 35 years before taking a company buyout back in May of 2013. He has since reinvented himself as a freelance writer and a media relations consultant. He's had a variety of assignments, from writing AHL stories to CFL stories for American newspapers and news articles for several Canadian weeklies. Author of 4 true crime books, including one that turned into a movie. He's also written 3 books on UFOs. Incident at Pleasant Ridge, we're going to talk about that tonight, a Canadian UFO mystery. Intrusion, Alien Encounters, earlier this year. And then his new release is called What If? Close Encounters of the Unusual Kind. His website is Bob Mitchell Writer at WordPress.com. And I've just got to say, Bob, I have been reading. Welcome to the program. But
Thank you very much for having me.
Bob, welcome. And I have been reading What If? And I got to tell you, man, it's one of the best books that I've read, and I have got a lot of stuff here. Congratulations on that. We're going to get to that in just a second. But
appreciate that. Thank you very much, Jimmy.
Yeah, no problem, Bob. But I have to give you you're a first-time guest here on the show. So I've got to give you the disclaimer, which is, welcome to the program. It's just you and I sitting in my living room having a conversation. We're going to start as friends and end as friends, and we're going to let that conversation go wherever. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Bob, crime writer, and, I've got some noise in the line here. Is that coming from you?
No, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, yeah, I've got some noise in the line, Bob. Are you using a headset?
Yeah.
Unplug it. Just go straight to the phone.
Okay, just a second.
There's something going on, and it just ended. Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay, but now speak into the phone.
Do you hear me now?
Oh, you're perfect. Okay, yeah, that was the problem. Okay. Yeah, we had a grounding issue. Okay, moving on.
Okay. I'm all tangled up here with my earphones.
with the experience of crime writing and that kind of background and reporting, I see that attention to detail in What If. And is that just your God-given talent? Because I'm serious. I want to tell the reader or the audience right now, you read this, and it's a page turner. And I got to tell you, I'm a little freaked out at how well it's done. And I read everybody's books. Is that just a natural thing, or do you intend to write from that mindset?
Well, I think it's improved over the years. I mean, I don't think my first crime book was as good as this last book I've done, and I don't think my first 2 UFO books were as good as this one. But they were all 3 UFO books are completely different, and they're actually written differently. For anybody who's read Intrusion, Alien Encounters, I wanted to write that book from the point of view of putting the readers actually right there, experiencing what the people were experiencing. So I wrote it in present tense and almost like you were reading a screenplay. And I told people right at the front of the book, I said, read it really slow, take your time, and just feel the emotion that was coming off. This one, I decided to take a different tack to it, and I just I wanted to, instead of letting them tell their stories, I also wanted to challenge them and question them in a few places, and I did that in a few of the chapters. But this was written more like an in-depth investigation, put it that way, of each person, although I had no idea what each person was going to tell me when we sat down to talk about it.
I'm going to read, if you don't mind. I'm just going to do this once. I never do this on the show, but I want the audience to kind of grasp what I am talking about here. This is the first few sentences of Chapter 1. Even as a young child growing up in Montreal, Satya Anand questioned his existence. Was the human race alone in the universe? What other species lived among the stars? But he would have to wait until his 50s in 2010 before he had his first experience, an experience that still leaves him wondering what exactly occurred that afternoon in his Toronto condo. Before we explore his incredible event, there is a background story to be told about this two-time daytime Emmy-winning director's life and search for the truth. That's how you start your chapter, man. And I mean, it's just like,
well, it grabbed you, didn't it?
It's like, what, you know? And it's an amazing read, and very rarely does a book start off like that. Now, if you don't mind, I got to get back to your childhood. We got to set that up.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your writing background and your criminal background. We need to do that. But but before we do, how did you find Satya?
I met him at the Alien Cosmic Expo that was held here in Brantford last summer. It was the inaugural one, and he was there doing some research for a publication he's trying to get out. He's trying to get a website together that's going to be like no other website on the planet. He's going to take it on like a real, major newspaper, only it's going to be about UFOs and the paranormal. And I met him then, and he was interested in interviewing me, and I was interested in interviewing him, and he was actually interested in interviewing me about my last book, Intrusion, and a couple of the people that I dealt with. And during the story, I was telling him about what they told me. He just suddenly stopped and said, "Listen, I got to tell you something that happened to me." And he told me a little brief about it, and I had decided, I was going to write another intrusion book, and I wanted him to be part of it. So we got together and over lunch, and he told me a story. And then we got together a few other times, and he told me the story.
Now, being a beat writer for crime and sports, even though those don't sound like the same thing, actually they are. So
these days, yeah.
Right. So you are always, whether you're dealing with crime or sports, you're always digging for the truth, and you're digging. You're a gumshoe guy. That's what you're doing. You're out, on the streets.
Yep.
So. What is that? Did you quiz him? Did you interrogate him the same way you would have done when you're dealing with a crime story or a sports story?
A little bit. The thing about experiencers I found is that I don't go in with any prejudged opinion that these are going to be quacks or these guys are going to just try to tell me a story that's not true.
Right.
And it comes quite clear early on in the interview process that whatever happened to them has affected them tremendously, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And so it's pretty hard to say they're making these stories up. They actually believe 100% that it happened to them, and nobody's going to tell them it didn't. And I asked them, over and over again, different versions and all that, and none of their stories ever changed. So, I sometimes ask them to tell me a little bit backwards, and sometimes to see if it jives, but it didn't. So I look at it like, I covered a lot of murder trials, and I know when the Crown Attorney and the DA in the States, I'm sure it's the same thing in the States, when they approach a jury when they're giving their summations, and they always tell them, if you find this guy is guilty, you've got to be certain beyond a reasonable doubt. You can't say, I probably think he's guilty, or I think he's guilty, because that means he's not guilty. So I look at these people as that, do I think I'm absolutely certain beyond a reasonable doubt that what happened to them they actually experienced? And I'd have to say I can't come to that conclusion. I would say I probably think they experienced this, or I think they did, but can I really say I'm certain they experienced this? I can't get to that point, but I know they're certain they experienced it. And I don't try to. None of the people that I've interviewed, in fact, I haven't found one of them that I thought was lying to me. or making things up. Although the one chapter in my latest book, Sinta Eje Narat, which I hope we'll get to a little bit later in the show, I still struggle with that chapter because there are a lot of things in there I don't agree with, but that's what the title of the book is. What if? What if she is right and everybody else is wrong?
Right. Which is to my point, because when you cover crime and sports, I know it sounds funny, but it is the same thing. When you're doing that, then you're always looking for the angle, and you have to listen to the story and have them tell it backwards, have it and look for those in that, because that's what a good journalist does, and that's the way that What If is written. I think it's a stunning piece of work, by the way, and congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed writing it, and I didn't think it was going to be as long as it was. And in fact, that one chapter with Sinta in it, I thought it was going to be maybe 20, 30 pages, and it turned out to be well over 100 pages
it's
for
a
her
book.
alone.
Yeah.
and it could have been a book, I thought. And who knows, if she keeps getting these telepathic images and thoughts, maybe I'll go back at her again and see if we can expand it into a 200 or 300 page book. But
well, let's come back to the book. But let's talk about a couple of other things that I find interesting. You live up in Toronto. You're Canadian.
I live in Brantford right now, which is a city about an hour's drive west of Toronto.
And I say it all the time on this show, especially when I have a Canadian researcher on the show, which is, what the heck is going on in Canada? You guys have more sightings. There's more things going on, and you have a much smaller population. But you people, it seems like the people are looking to the skies and happen to be able to see these things when they happen. But the amount of reports that come out of Canada is extraordinary, and they're good sightings too.
I believe the second only to the United States.
That's
if you look at the MUFON. I think part of it is that we're so tuned into it up here with all the shows that are on TV these days. You can't turn on a TV without seeing Hangar One or UFO Declassified or all kinds of shows like that. Ancient Aliens. We get inundated with it up here every day, and I think more people are aware of it. The internet's getting more and more, and I think it's just like in the States. People don't trust what they've been told all their lives. They think there's something else going on out there, and they just don't know what it is, but they know it's not what they've been told.
You have one of the, in my opinion, you have one of the most extraordinary cases ever, and that is Shag Harbor. We have Roswell. We have the military involved with Roswell. We have the documentation. We have the newspaper report. We have everything that happened in Roswell happened in Shag Harbor. You had the Canadian Mounties, you had scuba divers, you had the Coast Guard, you had newspaper, television, people standing on the shore, eyewitnesses to the crash. Everything that happened in Roswell happened in Shag Harbor. How come nobody talks about Shag Harbor? Why is it just brushed under the rug?
I think because nobody's doing anything on it. It was one of those things when it happened, and I think people, UFOs were big when it happened, but I think it just died away, and other things came to the forefront. Roswell, Rendlesham Forest, things like that. The Phoenix Lights, they just took over. And the other thing here, it's harder to get information from governments up here than it is in the United States. I mean, I'm always amazed, if I haven't been a crime writer, that anybody in the United States can get a free, a fair trial, because all the information is out before it even gets to trial. Up here, you don't get any information really until it goes to trial. And then it's only what the judge allows into a trial. Unless you're actually there for the preliminary hearing, you don't hear half the stuff that really goes on. So, I mean, the RCMP, they just, they're just nobody giving the information out. And that was sort of, no one knows what that was. I don't think they ever found anything definitive other than eyewitness accounts. people knew they saw something go into the water. I believe they even had they saw lights under the water when they went out to examine it, but then they just disappeared. There was no wreckage. There was no nothing.
I had to address what you just mentioned a couple of years ago. I had talked about Shag Harbor, and one of the listeners contacted me. He said, "Dude, I'm in the Canadian Navy." And he sends me a picture of himself in uniform standing under the Shag Harbor sign. And he goes, "Now, I'm going to go I'm going to go and check out. I'll get back to you." And for about 2 weeks, we had a correspondence going. Well, we still do, but back then it was constant. And he went to his commanding officers. He went to the RCMP. He did everything he could to ask about Shag Harbor, and every corner that he turned, it was the same thing. Can't talk about it. Can't talk about it.
Or it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist. Yeah.
And it's in the newspapers. It was on TV. The reports were filed. Coast Guard was there. I believe the United States sent the Coast Guard up there too, as well, to check it out.
I'm probably were. You probably get more information from somewhere in the States than you would out of Canada.
It was amazing. He goes, "Dude, I want to help you on this. I thought that I could. I'm in the Navy." he got shut down.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Shag Harbor because I've been dealing with a woman up here named Michelle McKay, and she's a famous paranormal investigator and had a couple of shows on the Discovery Network. And she's the great niece of Henry McKay, who was one of the foremost Canadian ufologists before he died in 2007 in his 80s. And we're trying to put together a show up here, not similar to Hangar 1, but a Canadian-based UFO show where we'll actually go out to sites like Shag Harbor and try to take another look at it. We're still waiting to get some, cash from producers and all that to make it happen. But if it does, Shag Harbor will be one of the ones we look at.
Yeah, we're hoping that we're going to have a season 3 of Hangar 1 down here. And
yeah, you should do this one, Shag Harbor. I mean, that's.
I would love to do. I'll bring it up to the producers if we, as soon as I get the thumbs up on season 3. I think we should do a Shag Harbor episode. And I have a question here from. Let me scroll down from Renee. And she says, and this is to you directly, Renee says, crime reporters such as Pulitzer finalist author Charles Bowden in the Southwest have written extensively on how being first at the scene of grisly murders affect them over time. In this case, he compensated for the ongoing emotional turmoil by doing 100-mile hikes over desert terrain, lots of drinking and lots of women. How did you manage to keep your heart intact and your head on straight during your years of crime reporting?
Well, I probably covered some of the Toronto area's most gruesome crimes. And, people ask me that all the time. Didn't it make you sick sitting in the courtroom? And actually, after a while, you sort of get numb to it. And the only time that it really affected me was when the parents of little kids who were killed got up and gave their victims' impact statements. I mean, that's the only time I can ever remember anything really affecting me. But the crime itself, it was more of a fascination. How somebody could think they could get away with this, and how little thought goes into some of them, and how tremendous thought goes into other crimes. But I never had to, go see a psychiatrist or go on these 100-mile walks or runs. It was just something that I did, and it really didn't affect me.
That's interesting, and I've always thought about we'll get back to what if here in a second, but I always thought about that. A jury. It's one thing to be a crime reporter. Okay, I get that. It's another thing to be a detective or a police officer. You get acclimated and so forth. But if you're a juror and you're forced to look at crime scene evidence and videos and photographs and you have to look at it. And
and it does affect them quite a lot. You can see it on their faces. Some of them are crying sometimes looking at it, and some just get too sick they can't look at it.
Oh man!
But it's I always go back to this because When people ask me, about the UFOs, how do you believe what they're telling you is true? I say, well, a Crown attorney and a DA always tells jurors to, use their common sense and their life experiences. Well, when you're dealing with UFOs, unless you've been abducted yourself, you don't have that life experience. So how in the world can you actually sit and judge somebody who's bearing their heart out to you about what happened to them and say, you're full of it? You can't experience what they've experienced unless you've experienced it. So I think a lot of people who think a lot of people are just, blowing smoke, they should, take a little step back and say, well, how do you know that? Because it never happened to you.
Well, and how about you? Did you have any experiences growing up?
My wife and I had an experience that we still don't know what it is till this day, and I'll give you the short version of it. And I must tell you that I don't have a lot of recollection of this. I remember what happened, bits and pieces, but not everything. So I'll set the stage for you.
You've got me intrigued. You've got me way intrigued.
Okay. Well, I was doing crime reporting at the time, and I was, I think I got home probably around 7 o'clock. And at the time, my wife was working the late shift for not a senior center, but it was a center for palliative care, I guess you'd call it. And she got home around midnight, and I had to get up early in the morning, so we talked a bit, and then I went to bed. And she stayed up to watch some TV. And I'm always a light sleeper. I mean, the slightest noise wakes me up. So, but for this night, for some reason, I didn't wake up. I was dead to the world. And around 2 o'clock in the morning, my wife comes in to wake me up, and she says, "You got to come out quick. There's something going on outside. There's a storm going on, and all the patio furniture's flying around the backyard, and the garbage cans are flying down the street." And so I'm kind of drowsy, and I get out of bed, and now I remembered her coming into the bedroom to wake me up, and I remember her taking me out to the living room. She says she took me to the window and opened the window, and we looked up in the sky, and we could see a cloud, but it almost looked like there was a hole punched in the sky, and this big light was going right from the ground up to the top. I have no recollection of that whatsoever, but she says I recognized it, and I looked at it, and we were just talking about it. She goes out the front and to get the garbage cans, and I go out the back to get the patio furniture. And now remember, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's pitch black. I go out to the backyard, and when I step outside, all I remember is it's like it's daylight. But I don't look up. I just grab the furniture and put it all back where it's supposed to be. But I remember that there's a swirling wind around me, and I'm not cold and not hot, but there's a wind going everywhere. And I get all the patio furniture put together, and my wife comes in through the gate, and she's asked me if I need any help, and I say no. And then we go back inside, and she says we sat for a bit to discuss what was going on. I have no recollection of that. And then I went to bed. And the next morning I got up thinking that I had a dream. And when she got back from work that day, I said to her, did I get up in the middle of the night and we do all this thing with the furniture? And she says, yeah, you looked up in the sky. We talked about it for about half an hour. And then suddenly I just got up and went back to bed. And the strange thing was, though, if that's not strange enough, she says that when I was out in the backyard, she said I was covered in a blue light. And I don't remember the blue light, but I know a lot of people that I've talked to who had experiences, they always tell me that they're covered in a blue light before they're abducted. So she says I didn't go anywhere that night, and I don't remember going anywhere that night, but I have no idea what that was. And the next day I asked the neighbors if they, saw that big storm last night, and they didn't know what I was talking about.
She said that you were looking up, but you don't remember looking up. You were just dealing with the furniture?
Yeah, and it was bright light, right? But I didn't look up to see what the light was.
But she saw
and that would be the thing.
Yes.
But she said I was covered in a blue light.
And she saw you look up, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But she said I didn't go anywhere. But again, it was like a matter of fact. And we didn't talk about this for about 10 years until I started writing about the UFOs. And she said, remember that strange night you had in the house in Oakville, Ontario? And I said, yeah, I remember that. And then she started telling me things I had no idea that happened to me that night. So I don't know what it was.
It sounds like you need some regression.
I know. Everybody tells me that, and I think one day I'll probably will. But
you
right
and me
now
both.
Right now it's a story that I tell, and I don't know what the outcome is.
Yeah. I'm this. I have my little experience, and people always tell me, you should go with regression, and I'm like, you know what? I'm cool with what I remember. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm cool with what I remember, but because it hasn't affected me.
That is interesting. And what about your parents? Were they open-minded growing up?
Don't remember we ever talked about it. I just don't. I mean, I think they watched, E.T. and they, probably what was that one that they made a remake of, the Last Man on Earth, not Last Man on Earth, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Right.
That one, and I think there was I always remember as a kid there was a movie about somebody invaded Earth and the Martians were in this field and there's a kid in his living room who got taken to an underground base. I don't remember what it was, but and of course there's the War of the Worlds. But I mean, it wasn't something that we talked about all the time. So I mean, I never ever talked to them about it, as far as I know. So.
Well, and that's interesting. So, what was the epiphany that happened that took you from crime investigation and journalism and sports into ufology and close encounters?
Well, that's an interesting story too, because when I left the Star and started doing some freelancing. One of the things I thought I'd do one day, and I think it was after watching, might have been, the first year of Hangar One or Ancient Aliens or one of those shows, and I thought, geez, it'd be interesting to find somebody who was a UFO investigator and do a freelance story on him and sell him to the local paper. So I called up MUFON and asked if there was anybody in the southwestern Ontario or Brantford area that was a MUFON investigator, and they said, oh, yeah, sure, we've got lots of them. And they put me in touch with the Ontario director, his name is Stu Bundy.
Uh-huh.
And so I called him up, and it turns out that he was the only one in Ontario doing it. And that was just 3 years ago. So we had lunch, and it turned out I knew Stu Bundy when I was covering sports. He actually was a sports broadcaster for CTV Network up here.
That's right.
And we had run into each other, a few times, and because I did sports twice. I did it at the beginning of my career and at the end of my career. And then at the beginning of my career, that's when we had run into each other. So we had lunch, and one thing led to another, and I actually joined MUFON, became a field investigator, and I actually became the person I was going to interview.
That's interesting.
And that led me to the first meeting we had in Brantford, where we thought we'd get maybe 7 or 8 people out to a coffee shop, and we had a story in the local newspaper saying it was going to happen. And lo and behold, instead of having 7 or 8 people, we had 75 people show up for the first meeting, and the coffee shop was overflowing. We couldn't even fit them all in, and it was from that meeting that suddenly people were coming out of the woodwork that wanted to talk to me about their experiences, and 3 of them ended up in that second book, Intrusion. And the interesting thing that I found that is kind of, I guess it's understandable when you think about it, but a lot of the people I've interviewed or talked to are in their 50s or older. It almost seems like they've carried this big, deep secret for most of their lives, and were just waiting that somebody would listen to them and wouldn't think they were nuts. And I just came along at the right time for all these people, and they really felt, for some reason, comfortable telling me their story. They started out a little nervous, but by the end of our interviews, that I became almost their best friend. And they were life-changing interviews, really, for all of them, that they finally got it off their chest.
Yeah, I find the same experience. I absolutely do, and I encourage everybody. If you think you have something to talk about, it may be you can't talk to your husband, your wife, your kids, your family about it, your boss at work, and you don't. You know what? Call me, tell me. Talk to somebody, but that's what you need to do, because I did the same thing. And I had a couple of things that happened, and I didn't tell anybody. I mean, for years and years and years. And then I get on the radio and I'm just spilling my guts. It's kind of funny. But
well, there's everybody that's in the two last books. There's four people in the Intrusion book, and then 7, I believe, in the last book. So that's 11 people, and none of them had ever told their story before. So this is the first time they've ever gone public with it.
Let's talk about chapter 1. Let's talk about Satya. And I kind of, if you don't mind, I'd like to go a little bit in depth and kind of tell the complete story, because it is absolutely, it's an unbelievable story. And for him coming forward, here he is. He's an award-winning director. Was he worried about getting his name out there publicly and his career?
Yes and no. I have to tell you that Satya is his name, but it's not the name he goes by right now. That name was given to him when he lived in the Himalayas. But it is his real second name, I guess you'd put it. Originally, we had his first name and his last name, and we had his picture in the book. And he asked me at the last moment if he could just change it, because he was in negotiations with a big deal he was trying to do, and he thought it might cause some problems. If he hadn't been in that big deal, he would have had no problem, doing it. And I'm sure he'll come out with his real name eventually if he gets this project off the ground. But people who know him will probably figure out who it is. He's done some stuff in the States. I wouldn't say he's well known in the States as a director of documentary, but he's done stuff with the Discovery Network and done stuff for I think A&E. But it's absolutely true.
Well, and as let's kind of start from the beginning, and you could probably do this in the first person in the best of ways.
Sure.
So how did he start the story with you, with his experience?
How did he start it? If I remember correctly, he started with the incident in his Toronto condo. He just sort of said, because he had the exact same experience, well, not the exact same experience, but he had the same experience with that being as a couple of people in my earlier book did. And because I was talking about the woman in that earlier book and mentioned this being, that's when he came out and said, "Oh my gosh, you're telling me exactly what happened to me." And one of the threads, we're talking about a mantis being for the listeners. One of the strange things about the insectoid creatures that people have encountered is that even though some of them are 8 feet tall, or in his case, this one was about 30 feet tall, if an 8-foot tall insectoid creature suddenly appeared in this room right now, I think I'd freak out and go crazy and run out the room. But every single person I've talked to who's ever come across these creatures have nothing but overwhelming love for these creatures. And it's something that they can't explain. At least the people in Intrusion couldn't explain it, but Satya, he explains it quite well in his book, in his story. But he had never even heard about this creature or even knew they existed before it happened to him. So it wasn't like he saw a movie about it and then went to bed and had this incredible dream. He just never even knew any such creature ever existed. As far as he was concerned, the only aliens people saw were greys. So he had no knowledge of the mantis creature.
So what happened to him in his Toronto condo?
Well, for the listeners, though, as I said, there had to be a backstory. So the backstory was that he had spent 29 years off and on in the Himalayas learning meditation from one of the enlightened masters. I guess you call him a guru, but quite one of the famous ones in Tibet. And so he was very adept at doing meditation, and in fact, he also was very adept at doing out-of-body experiences. And so he was familiar with out-of-body experiences and what they felt like and everything to do with that. So this one day, he's got some friends over in their condo, and it's in the afternoon, so it's not late at night. He's not tired, but he just wants to meditate a little bit. So he goes into the room while they're having, I guess, conversation on the balcony, and he just wants to lie down and have sort of a power meditation just to relax himself. And as he's lying down, suddenly he feels a tremendous force, and he's out of his body. But in other out-of-body experiences, you're there, but you don't see your body. You're just sort of the visual. Your oneness with the universe. You see things, but you're not really seeing with eyes. You're just part of everything. Well, in this one, he's actually wearing the same clothes that he went to lie down with. And I think they were doctors and a shirt and shoes. But he's suddenly flying through the air, and he goes outside of the Earth's atmosphere, and he's just hurtling towards, deep space. And as he's hurtling towards there, he's actually physically seeing his body, and he sees the Earth, get farther and farther away, and they go past the moon, and they go past Venus and Mercury and Mars, and he recognizes all the planets, but he keeps going. And eventually he ends up in deep, dark space, and there's nothing. There's no stars. There's just nothing there, and he's floating.
Now,
but
didn't he?
Again,
let me jump in for a second.
Sure.
Didn't he describes it as? I mean, this was a physical experience for him. He said, he felt he felt the acceleration. He felt like he was in a rocket ship, or I think that's what he said. I think so now. Because some other person said it was like being shot out of a cannon. Right. And
I think he says a ship or some kind, but there's no ship. It's just him.
It's him.
And he looks down and he sees his feet, his legs, his pants, his arms. His hair. It's there. He's in a physical body, not this oneness that people talk about when they're in out-of-body experiences. And so he's in deep space, and suddenly he stops. And he tells me it's like he gets this sense that something is looking at him very strongly. He tells me it's like you're parked at a light, and suddenly you get this sensation that somebody's staring at you from the car next to you, and you sort of look over quickly, and sure enough, the person is staring at you. He says he had that feeling, only it was like 1,000,000 times stronger, that there was something just looking at him and almost penetrating his soul. And in the distance, he sees something coming towards him. And eventually, it's right in front of his face. And before he can even have a thought of being afraid or scared or scream, it's an overwhelming feeling of love. And what he's seeing is this giant, he describes it as being 30-foot tall insect-like creature with big arms that are out to the side and huge eyes and almost like a beak, I think he says, but it's not a beak. And before he can even say, "Oh my gosh, what the hell this is," it's like he has the strongest feeling of love that he's ever had in his entire life. Almost indescribable sense of love. And at the same time, while he talks about it being as a love of a parent for a child, he also has this feeling that it's more than that it's almost like a love of a partner of some kind, which makes absolutely no sense to him because he's staring at a giant 30-foot tall insectoid, which at this point he has no idea that it's a mantis, or it's even called mantis. And they have this telepathic, communication, and being from spending a lot of time in Tibet, he believes 100% in reincarnation, And he believes he's had past lives on Earth, and he's been like animals and plants, and is also other human beings. But in this communication, somehow they're communicating with each other telepathically, and they start talking about reincarnation, and he gets the impression that he's been with this being before, and at some point he says to the being, like you or like me, and the being tells him, no, we've been together in its form as an insectoid, not like a human.
Right.
And that blows his mind completely, and then it tells him that they will be together again, and he asks the being, again, in my form on Earth or in your form, and the being says no, in its form. And that was it really blew his mind, because up till that point, he says it never occurred to him that the reincarnation process was something that went on throughout the entire universe, that it wasn't just on Earth, that you could be reincarnated as a being on another planet in another solar system, and that we're all oneness. Everything is all the same. And as I said, he didn't know what this creature was. So when he got, almost as soon as that happened, he felt this great pull back, and he woke up in bed again. And it wasn't an experience like another body experience. This was actually a physical, emotional experience that he believed he was there and had this experience. And he didn't know what it was, and he ended up, trying to look it up on the internet and talking to people, and eventually they told him, it was a mantid, and he looked it up, and sure enough, he found pictures that sort of looked like what he experienced, but none of them were quite right. And eventually, he has a good friend who's an artist, and in the book there's a couple of drawings that the artist drew for him about what his experience looked like that day. And, if you've seen the pictures, it's this giant insectoid creature that is looking at him. And this overwhelming love is the same overwhelming love that everybody who has ever had experiences with these ones always feel. And they're also the kind of creatures that people have told me that when they are with greys, somehow in the background there's an insectoid-type creature. So it's like they are in control of the greys for some reason. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they're experiencing.
It's have you found, I know you kind of touched upon this, but have you found, and especially as a journalist, the consistencies that you don't speak about, right? When you're, what's going on in the back of your mind, you're listening to somebody talk about their experiences, but time after time, you're finding the same consistent thing between people that don't know each other, that don't know you.
Absolutely. Basically, in all the people that I've dealt with, they didn't know each other. Some of them now know each other because they met at different meetings I've been at. But when they first were telling me their story, I said, well, this is remarkable because it's the same thing I got from this other lady. Like the mantids one myself, that really was incredibly interesting to me, because I had never heard about the love connection before. And when two different people originally told me it who didn't know each other, I thought, my goodness, how do they know? They're not communicating, and they've telling me the exact same story. And then when he told me this, it was like unbelievable.
How accurate? And I'm looking at the illustration that Doug did for the book. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at how accurate does Satya feel that this is to what he saw?
Very accurate. The first picture where you see him up in space is he says that's exactly what it was like. The other one, where the brownie story, he says it's basically the same thing, although there wasn't a light above him that's in that picture. It was a different kind of light. It wasn't. That one makes it look like he's on an operating table, but it really isn't an operating table. But the creatures are basically the same.
It's extraordinary, because this guy looks like, and when you look at, I'm going to guess and say, at least 10 feet tall. And humanoid.
Yeah. I mean, he says he's 30 feet tall.
Right.
He says his head was about 8 feet tall. So
right. And
that's certainly bigger than any other mantis that I've ever had anybody tell me about.
Now, humanoid too, as well. It's like a combination of the both. I don't know how to explain it. You have to see the illustration in the book, but it's
yeah. Well, it's strange because one of the ladies, Kelly McLean, who had an experience with one in my intrusion book, she said that what amazed her about it, other than the fact that she felt that they had known each other before, and there comes the reincarnation link again, although she didn't connect it to reincarnation at the time she was telling me. She says that when it moved gracefully across the floor, almost like a very ballerina-like type. So that's kind of human qualities.
I got to tell you, Doug is really good.
He's incredible. I mean, and he does it without, doesn't trace anything. He's like one of these, street guys who, here, give me $20, I'll draw your picture. He does it with chalk or charcoal, and he does it like very quickly. So
it's extraordinary to look at. Now, what about the communication that went down between Satya and the being? Did the being give him a name, and what was that conversation?
No, it was just that we had been together before, and we'll be together again. And when we are together again, it'll be in the insectoid form. It won't be in a human form. And he got the impression that they may have been partners, husband and wife, I guess, lovers in some case, as an insectoid. But he didn't have any name. Like it wasn't like a long conversation. It was just. I don't think he has any time frame about how long the conversation lasts, or certainly the whole incident wouldn't have lasted that long because his friends were still in the apartment when he came out to tell him what had happened. So it probably was no more than 10, 15 minutes, if that.
Did they have their second encounter?
Who were the friends?
Satya and the being, the insect.
Well, he's had, I guess, 2 more encounters, although one of them he's not quite sure because he was in a New Year's Eve party, and he's with some friends up in the country, and I forget what he called it now. You probably got it in front of you. It's like a chant type room where people sit on the outside, and there's a circle in the center, and you channel your inner energies, and everybody was at this New Year's Eve party, and when he went into the center of this, suddenly he saw this being again. There was no conversation, and he wasn't able to, figure out whether that being he was just thinking about it through his meditation, or he actually was there again. But he didn't have any recollection of any kind of conversation. He thought it was the same being, but there was no way of him to tell.
And this was
nobody else had that same experience when they went in the circle either. So.
And this happened just a year ago.
Yeah. Last year was, I think. I think the first one was 2011.
Yeah, 2010.
And then last year there was just a strange one with the brownie. Maybe I should tell people about that one.
Yeah. Go ahead. We have about 5 minutes to a break here. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this, and we'll pick up after the break. It's fascinating. Okay. And I want to say to everybody, the illustrations and the descriptions that Satya has given. And with this praying mantis thing, I'm just going to go on the record. I don't know how he wasn't scared, or other people that had this experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
I wouldn't dig it, but for some reason they are cool with it, and it's unbelievable. Okay,
they're not cool with the Grays.
No, they're not cool with the Grays.
Exactly, but they're cool with this.
I wouldn't be. Okay,
neither would I.
No. Okay, let's tell the brownie story. It's fascinating.
The brownie story. So he's at a conference, and they all go back to a hotel to get some food and drink, and he hasn't eaten all day, so he sees this big plate of brownies, and you got to remember, he doesn't do drugs at all, doesn't drink, anything like that. So he's so hungry that all these brownies are cut up into very small pieces. But he's so hungry that he grabs the biggest piece of brownie he can, and he starts eating it. And after he consumes it, suddenly he has this horrible reaction to his body. Like he can't even explain it. It's something he's never experienced before. He feels like he's almost having a heart attack. And he ends up sitting down in the corner and trying to relax and trying to meditate, and hopefully he can get his meditation and get his breathing done so he's not having this, discomfort. And suddenly while he's there, he suddenly finds himself surrounded by, they look like grays, and they're actually operating on him. He feels he's not even in the same room, and he can actually almost physically see his heart. And they're doing something to his heart. And I'm trying to remember now if there's actually a mantis in the room too. I think there is, but it's off to the side watching. And it's so real to him that he has no idea what's going on. And eventually he comes to and he's okay, and he has this tremendous memory, but he's told he's been sitting in this chair for about 5 hours. and he's so concerned about his heart that he has to go and make an appointment with his doctor to find out if there's anything wrong with his heart. But it turns out the brownies were spiked with something. He's not quite sure what they were, but it probably was hash or marijuana or something. But he had a huge overdose of it that night.
Now, and what about the satellite quotes that he had? Satellites are 400 to 500 kilometers high, he told her. And what about that part of his experience?
The satellites. I'm trying to remember what that is. I got so many stories in my mind. I'm trying to remember what that one is.
See, I just read the
sure
book.
That's him? Sure that's him that talks about satellites?
Yeah, and...
yeah. He's on before he has this brownie incident. He's on the balcony with his girlfriend, and he sees. They clearly think they've seen a UFO, and he uses one of those laser pointers, which you're not supposed to shine up at an airplane, but he shines it at this thing, and there's actually a reflection that comes from it, and. When he's in the state he's in with the brownies, he has this sense or told or has this feeling that they connected with him that night, and he said that it was way lower than a satellite, and it was lower than a plane too, and it wasn't a plane because he's on his balcony all the time with his girlfriend watching the sky, so he knows, and there's so many planes that come over Toronto, like he's quite familiar with the plane, what they look like, and how they travel and the speeds they travel. But there's some connection with. He believes strongly that there's some connection between what he did that night to show that he was connecting with him to the connection that he had that night with the brownies. Exactly.
And laser pointers, unless you want the experience, keep the laser pointer in your pocket.
Yeah, I think that's don't shine at them because that showed them that he had seen them. I guess they're not supposed to.
How is he doing today?
Oh, great. I talk to him every month or so. It's just sort of opened up his eyes even more to want to investigate more of this. I don't think he's had any other experiences, but I'm sure if he does, he'll call me.
Let's take a quick break. We're talking to Bob Mitchell tonight, and we are doing Canadian Close Encounters. And his new book is called What If? We'll pick it up on the backside. We'll talk about some other, not only that, but I'm going to talk about his first book when we come back. This is Jimmy Church. Tonight, Bob Mitchell. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church. You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Ray Sobbs here once again to tell you about the Space and Alien Snowfest Ufology Conference taking place in the ski resort city of Big Bear Lake in sunny Southern California. What a lineup. Richard Dolan, Chase Kletsky, Micah Hanks, George Norrie, Jason Martell, Jimmy Church, Linda Moulton Howe, keynote speaker Stanton Friedman, and more. Along with the speakers and lecturers, join the luncheon hosted by Jimmy Church. See a world-class UFO ET-themed ice sculpture contest with attendees voting the winner. Enjoy the quaint shops, restaurants, and pubs in Big Bear Lake Village, and enjoy some of the best sky watching you can imagine. After the hectic holidays, gift yourself with a retreat the first week of February and come relax with us in a premier ski resort town high in the mountains of the Southern Sierras with an average of over 300 sunny days a year. Take advantage and book your lodging early and get your tickets now. Visit our website and register at aliensnowfest.com. That's aliensnowfest.com.
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow night, Jim Mars is going to be right here. We're going to be talking about the worldwide media conspiracy that is going down right now around us. Thursday night is Fader night. Friday night, I'm back over at Coast to Coast AM. My guest will be Micah Hanks. And then Saturday night over at Coast to Coast AM as well with Leo Zagami. But tonight it is Bob Mitchell. And Bob, before the break, I brought up your first book, which is An Incident at Pleasant Ridge, a Canadian UFO mystery. And take us back to the summer of 1975. For most people, they have never heard about this. And so what happened in Mount Pleasant in 1975?
Well, you're right on there. It's a story that nobody's ever heard of, and I had never heard of it until that first meeting I mentioned with when we had 75 people there. I would say almost 75% of the people that were in that coffee shop that night had heard about this because they had grown up with this story all their lives. It was a famous story that happened in the town. It wasn't quite like Roswell, but it was their version of Roswell, I guess. And what happened was that there's a farming community called Mount Pleasant, which is immediately south of Brantford. And back in 1975, there were a lot of tobacco farms, and there's still some tobacco farms there today, although this farm, it's just sort of, there's nothing there now. But back on that afternoon, there's a farmer named Joe Borda, and he's out leaning against the fence in the late afternoon of July 6, 1975, and it was a Sunday afternoon. And as he's out there, he looks across his field, and about 200 yards in the field, he sees this shiny dome-like object, and the sun is just shining off it, and, he has to kind of shield his eyes because it's so bright. And the first thing that he thinks about is that, oh my God, there's a flying saucer in the middle of my tobacco field. And almost as soon as that thought goes into his mind, it goes away. And in fact, he doesn't even think about it anymore. The only thought that's in his mind is that there's nothing there. Don't worry. Don't bother looking at it. Just go about your business. It's just a tanker spraying your crops. So he goes in the house and doesn't think anything more about it. In fact, he actually goes into town and goes for a swim. He completely forgets that he's even seen this. It's not till 2 days later, the Tuesday now, that he's out actually in his field with his tractor, and he's trying to till the land, and suddenly he comes across this almost like it's not a perfect circle, but it's about a 40-foot diameter patch, a jagged patch, in fact, in the field, and all his tobacco crops in this circle are bent and burnt, and there's this ooey, purplish liquid ooze in certain spots of the field. And he gets off the tractor and he's looking at it, and he's thinking, this is exactly where I saw that object. And he says, my God, did I see a flying saucer? And he can't figure out why he didn't rush out to take a look at it when it happened. Right. He can't figure out why his mind told him not to go even look anymore, that there was nothing there. So he doesn't know what to do. He's very perplexed. He's looking around, and he thinks maybe that somebody had pulled a prank on him, but there's no tire tracks anywhere near to get to this spot. All the other tobacco plants are, standing up the way they should be. Nothing's been disturbed. The ground is exactly like it should be. The only tracks are where he put his tractor. And he starts thinking back, and he says, in his mind, he's thinking, well, I thought it was somebody spraying the crops, but he didn't order anybody to spray the crops that afternoon, so he's completely perplexed. So he calls his brother, and his brother is Charles Border, and at the time, Charles is the Crown Attorney, or in the States version, he's the DA for the city.
Okay.
So he calls his brother, and he says, well, what should I do? And his brother, he doesn't, he doesn't think his brother's nuts, but he says, well, I would call the police to see, what's going on out there, and see who damaged your crops. So he calls the Ontario Provincial Police, but in the meantime, his brother comes out before the police get there, and his brother goes to the area, and he looks at it, and sure enough, it's exactly like Joe has told him, and he's kind of, curious about what could this be. And I found out later that Charles actually was, he was a UFO believer. He was actually into the stuff. So he got some mason jars and put some of the liquid in the mason jars, because he decided he was going to get somebody to take a look at what this cool purplish liquid was. So the OPP come and they do their investigation, and they don't know what it is, and they take some samples too, and they take the samples, and the samples are supposed to go to the forensic lab in Toronto. And Charles Borda, in fact, he takes his samples and personally drives down to Toronto, which is an hour's drive away, and personally hands them in to the intake people at the forensic lab. And he says, please give me a call when you figure out what this stuff is. Now, you got to remember, this is now the Tuesday. He saw it on the Sunday. This is the Tuesday. He hasn't told anybody about it other than the police and his brother. There's no newspaper coverage of it yet. Nobody knows but them. That night, which now is July 11th. Okay, no, what date is it? July 6th is Sunday. July 8th is when he discovers it, and July 9th is when the stuff is taken down to the forensic lab. On July 10th, suddenly he's looking out the window, and a black limo goes by the front of his house and turns onto the field and goes directly where this burnt patch is. And as it goes by the house, he notices the license plates are Arizona license plates. And there should be no reason why there's a black limo with Arizona license plates in Brantford, Ontario. And especially there should be no reason why they're going up to take a look at what's over in this field, because he hasn't called anybody except the OPP. So unless the OPP called somebody who then called somebody else, suddenly we've got this black limousine at the exact spot where he thinks a flying saucer landed. So he goes out to talk to them, and when he gets out to the field to talk to them, suddenly they tell him, there's nothing here, don't worry, go about your business, there's nothing here to see, just go back home. And instead of questioning him, he turns right around and goes back into the house as if nothing ever happened.
Right.
Which is strange again. It's the exact same feeling he had when he first saw the flying saucer. So he tells his brother about this, and his brother doesn't know what to make of it. So the brother calls the forensic lab to see if they've got any answers about what the liquid was, and he's told that they don't know what he's talking about. In fact, they don't have any record of him ever bringing any samples into the forensic lab. Nothing was ever logged, and they don't even remember him being there.
Is that
now,
right? Right.
Yeah. Now, this is a Crown attorney, so he gets really upset, and he's angry, and he's demanding that, somebody, get some supervisor involved, and they just basically tell him that there's no record of anything ever being filed here, and they don't know what he's talking about. So he's got some friends at the OPP, and he gets them to call over, and they can't find any information either. They know they've sent stuff over there, but according to the people at the forensic lab, they don't have any record of that either. So this gets stranger, though. So
well, before we get, it's such a crazy documented
Oh, it's a crazy
case.
Story, yeah.
Yeah, but before we go there, the three guys from the limousine that went out and was collecting evidence. Did he speak to those guys? Did he go up to them? I know he was pissed off that
he went up to them, and all he remembers is them telling him that, there's nothing here to see, go back into your house, and it's none of your business what we're doing.
And they're collecting evidence on his property.
They're collecting evidence, but he doesn't question them because somehow in his brain it tells him not to question.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It almost sounds like he's dealing with the Men in Black, but he doesn't. There's no evidence that he even mentioned the Men in Black to anybody. But I don't even know if he knew there was such a entity back then in '75. But it's very clandestine anyways.
Well, and how many black cars are running around with Arizona license plates?
Well, that's the thing. It wouldn't be unusual to maybe if the Air Force flew up here because you could fly up here in a couple of hours from Arizona if there was anybody in Arizona that was interested in it, but you certainly wouldn't drive here in one day. So who knows why there's Arizona license plates on it?
Yeah, it's an interesting.
It makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, see, they can't find any information at all about what this material is. So again, the newspapers haven't been called yet. So the newspapers on July 10th is when there was a reporter from the Brantford Expositor, which was a daily paper back then, and the Hamilton Spectator, which was another local paper close to Brantford. They arrived, two reporters arrived on July 10th. And so they interview Joe. Joe doesn't tell them about the limousine, which makes no sense, but then again, if they told him there was nothing there, it probably wasn't even in his mind. All he tells them is that he thought he saw a flying saucer, and that when he went to look 2 days later, he saw this burnt field. So the earliest that story would have been able to get in the paper would have been the next day. You got to remember, this was before the internet. There's no Twitter. There's no nothing. And
there would have been a serious lag of time between the police department and
the
newspaper.
Yeah. And like Joe was the one that called the newspapers because he didn't, he didn't care if people thought he was nuts because he knew what he saw. And so he calls them, and they read the story, and it appears on July 11th. Well, July 11th, that night, he gets a call on the phone from 3 people who claim to be ufologists, investigators, and one is in Niagara Falls and 2 are in Buffalo, and they want to come up and see it right away. And so they come up about 10 o'clock, and they said they've heard about the story on the radio. Well, I wonder how that could have been possible, because they wouldn't have got the Brantford local paper. The Wire story did pick up the Brantford paper, but not till July 12th. So July 11th, there would have been absolutely no way that people in Buffalo or Niagara Falls would have even heard about this story. But they show up at the farm, and they want to go immediately to the site where this was seen. And the story goes is that as they're out on the site, it's dark and it's nighttime, and suddenly they realize that what they're saying is being basically retransmitted again somewhere in the forest that surrounds this farm, and they hear their voices being sent back to them, but it's not their voices, it's their words, but it's an electronic female voice that is repeating everything they're saying.
Well, yeah, let's hold on. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves too, because that's an amazing part of the story. That's let's not get there yet. There's a couple of things that are interesting that we need to address here. Number one, how long does it take to drive from Arizona to Toronto on a good week? You're looking at what, 3 days at best, right?
I would think so. I mean, if you're going to, I believe you can go from Toronto to Florida in 24 hours if you're just driving all the time. So,
yeah, right, nonstop. Okay, so
maybe a day and a half.
Okay, day and a half. I'm thinking 2 days at best, driving 24 hours a day, just stopping for gas, and somebody else stays driving, and the vehicle never shuts off, and you never pull into a motel. Okay, all right. So it's impossible for a car to go that because, and the reason why this is important in the timeline here, he didn't report it to the police till the next day. It would have been delayed going out again to the newspaper. So we're dealing with 2 or 3 days later on. In the meantime, these 3 guys show up immediately from Arizona with Arizona plates. Well, we think they're from Arizona. Yeah. He doesn't know if they're Men in Black or not, but he's never heard of the Men in Black. He didn't ask him for ID. He's stunned. He goes in the house. I don't even know if he sees them leave. He sees them collect evidence.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't see them leave.
Right. And all of this is going on at the same time. And then these 3 UFO investigators show up, quizzing him on the Men in Black, the police, how it was notified, and everything. And all of this is going on before anybody technically could have heard about it.
Yeah, nobody's heard about it yet, other than the OPP and his brother. Yeah. Like, nobody else has heard about it. So, I mean, I tried to figure out how, perhaps a local radio station in Brantford would have picked the story up, and somebody in Niagara Falls, which is a couple hours away, in Buffalo, might have heard a radio station, but highly unlikely. You're gonna listen to your local station. You're not gonna listen to some place in Brantford for no reason, right? So
no, and this is 1975, everybody.
Yeah,
so you need to.
There's no internet, no cell phones, no nothing.
Whew, what a crazy. Okay, so now the 3 investigators show up, and they are complete strangers to him. He doesn't know who.
Strangers. In fact, I was able to dig up, and I'm sure these are the same 3 people, but I was able to dig up an actual letter that came from them, thanking him for letting them see their property, and I believe it was 2 years later. he actually got another letter from them saying that we found, conclusive evidence that there was a UFO on your property, and we'd like to send you some pictures. I never did find those pictures or anything after that, but there are names that are given to these three people. I've tried to find them. In fact, one of the names I thought I actually had found the guy. He lived somewhere in Pennsylvania, and I called him and left a message, and he called me back, and we started talking, and after a few minutes I realized he had no idea what I was talking about. It's just the same guy's name. But as they're there, they hear this strange electronic female voice, and they get spooked, and they go back to the house, and the wife makes some coffee and to calm their nerves, and away they go after that. But,
well, what did the female voice say? Did they?
It just repeated what they were saying.
Right.
But it was electronic. It was a female, but more of an electronic voice. And they also they said they saw bushes moving, and they just all got very freaked out about it, and basically ran back to the house. In fact, just after the voices start, Joe just decides to get back in the car, and he says, again, he feels like there's nothing out here to show them, and he's going home. And sort of leaves them out there by themselves, and they get all spooked out, so they run back to the car to jump in before he can take off.
Well, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, that's what I would have. That's what I would have done too. So anyway, where does the story go from there?
Well, let's go back to the forensic evidence.
Okay.
That went to the lab, and now I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's one thing that tripped me out about this whole thing, that the police kind of forced if my memory's correct on this, they kind of forced the lab results, and they just said it was nothing. It was like dirt.
Yeah. Well, they got different stories. One, and apparently there was never any actual paperwork. It was just a phone conversation that was given to the OPP after they tried to, force them to tell them something. And at one point somebody said, "Oh, it was just lightning that did it." That was their official explanation, and it wasn't oil; it was some kind of silicon-based something. So
yeah, that happens all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah. So there was nothing there. So I think on the 10th there was another person that came up to look at this, and this was the Henry McKay that I was talking about earlier in the show, of Michelle McKay's great uncle.
Yes.
And he's got all these archives that she was left after he died, and she's going through them now. So we talked about it, and she tells me that she remembers having great conversations with her uncle about this incident for quite a long time, and it actually bugged him a lot because he was stymied everywhere he went to try to get information about this. By the time he had showed up, there was no samples left, and he's a big stickler for samples. He wants to see samples more than lights in the sky. He wants to see physical evidence. So he, had the same run around with the forensic lab, and he spent more than a decade trying to get information on this from all the governments, agencies in Canada, the RCMP, and he was stonewalled at every single place. And finally, he even got right to the Prime Minister's office, and he got a form letter that said that they couldn't speak about this because it was a police matter, which who knows what that meant. And I tried to find stuff too. I mean, I called the RCMP and the National Council and the Defense Department to see if there was anything in their files, right? And they wrote back to me that they have no information whatsoever on this case. It doesn't exist.
Right, and you live in Brantford, so
yeah.
Were you able to find any other eyewitnesses that may have seen an object in the sky? Were there any?
Oh yeah, and here's what makes the story takes another twist of this story. There's a guy named Louis Papp, and he was about 24 years old at the time when this happened, and his farm was right adjacent to Joe Borger's farm, so that was the next farm over. And he goes out. It's his job to, to kill the field. He's got a tobacco farm too, so So every morning he does that. So he goes out on that morning of July 6, 1975. Now, remember, Joe Borda saw this in the late afternoon.
Right.
But it was already landed on his field. Joe never saw it. Joe never saw it flying. When he saw it, it was already landed. But Louis Papp actually is out in his front lawn and ready to get on the tractor when he sees a silvery object flying over the trees and going down behind the trees, landing in Joe Borda's farm. And this is the morning now. And he's like quite, amazed by this whole thing. He says, he remembers thinking, oh my God, it's a flying saucer. And he runs back into his house to tell his dad and his brother who are in the living room. And as soon as he gets in there, he can't remember why he ran in to tell what he ran in to tell his father about. He's standing in the middle of the living room, like dumbfounded, and the father's looking at him, thinking, like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be tilling the field. And he can't remember why he's come in. And he sort of, mumbles, and he says, Dad, I have no idea why I'm here. So he goes back outside, doesn't think about the flying saucer again, almost the same reaction that Joe had. And he goes on the tractor and he goes to his field, and his tobacco field's probably about at least a mile away from where the saucer landed in Joe Borda's land. And when he's out there, he comes across an identical circle with burnt tobacco plants and same kind of gooey liquid.
Yeah, the purple goo.
Yeah, so he says, oh my God, what is this? So he gets back on the tractor and he comes barreling back to the front of the house and goes in to tell his father about what he's just seen. And the strangest thing is that his dad is reading a newspaper from the Brantford Expositor about the story about Joe Borda's farm. And the dad tells him, don't be telling anybody what you're seeing, because all those police are going to be on our farm and bothering us about it. So don't tell any soul what you just seen. Now, he could have had the days mixed up. And if he does, that means there was another landing, 5 days later.
Right.
But in his mind, it's the same July 5th, but he can't figure out why his dad's reading a newspaper of an event that hasn't been reported yet. So in my mind, I think it must have been a second landing, or he just has the days mixed up. But in any event, he doesn't tell anybody. But the next day, he's curious. So he goes over to Joe Borda's farm, and he sees about a dozen people in white hazmat suits, which he thinks are Geiger counters, going all over the area.
Oh man!
And they're sticking flags in the area, and they're just doing something. And he gets more curious, so he walks towards them, and suddenly this army jeep comes up to him, he says, and this guy who looks like a U.S. colonel with all kinds of stripes on it and stars on it, tells him he can't go any further. This is a military investigation, and he's clearly a U.S. officer, right?
Yeah, I was
and
just
so,
that's now. Let's pump the brakes on the truck here for a second.
Yeah. Okay.
Explain that. And how do you explain that?
I don't know how you explain it. He sees all these people, this Jeep, but it gets even stranger because the guy tells him that there's none of your business. This area is cordoned off for an investigation, and he says he's with Project Blue Book. Now, Project Blue Book ended in 1969. This is 1975, so
right.
He couldn't have been with Project Blue Book unless there was a secret Project Blue Book that...
Oh, are you there? Wow, that's interesting. Are you still there, Bob?
He didn't go under as deep as we thought some people go under. But he didn't change his story. It was always the same thing.
Hey, Bob, I'm gonna trip you out here for a second. We lost you for about 15 seconds. Complete silence. The NSA, man, the Canadian government just stepped in. Let's.
Interesting you said that, because when I was talking to Michelle McKay the first time about her uncle and what he discovered, we all had complete silence for about 30 seconds.
Interesting.
Out of nowhere.
Well, let's take a quick break. Let's finish. This is an amazing incident up there in Brantford, and we'll pick it up on the backside of this. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Bob Mitchell. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Why do people order Life Change Tea? Because Life Change Tea helps the digestive system. Life Change Tea helps the colon unclog. The tea also helps with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and many, many other health issues. Life Change Tea also tastes great. And Life Change Tea is not just green tea. Life Change Tea is a unique blend of 8 different herbs that go to town, cleaning your body of harmful toxins, bacteria, and parasites. Our tea is number 1. Are you ready for your life change? Let the tea help you. Log on to our online store of helpful products to get your body on track. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Not all tea is equal. Read our website of all the factual testimonies that prove that Life Change Tea is working. Health is important, and our quality of life is very important. Don't wait to order. Expect a life change with Life Change Tea at getthetea.com.
Hi, I'm Richard Dolan. When I'm not hosting my radio program, The Richard Dolan Show on KGRA, or writing new books on UFOs, I run a publishing company. I'm proud to say that Richard Dolan Press has published some of the most fascinating books available on UFOs and related subjects. They include Dr. Bruce Maccabee's classic analysis of the UFO cover-up, David Marler's breakthrough book on triangular UFOs, Dr. Richard Sauter's unique work on underground bases, and other classics by Grant Cameron, Chase Kletsky, and Dr. Bob Wood. Not to mention intriguing works by Eve Lorgan and Laurie MacDonald that deal with truly bizarre phenomena. I'm proud to publish such high quality and original works, and there are several amazing books about to be released over the next few months. Go to richarddolanpress.com to learn more.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Jim Mars is going to be right here. We'll be talking about the worldwide media conspiracy that's going on all around us at this very moment. Thursday night is Fader night. Friday, I'm back over on Coast with Micah Hanks, and Saturday on Coast 2 as well with Leo Zagami from Italy. And tonight it is Bob Mitchell live. You know, Bob, I almost said Toronto, and that's
okay. I lived most of my life in Toronto area, so
love Toronto too. By the way, just a great city.
And by the way, I remember earlier in your show you said it was 32 degrees in L.A. in the morning. You said.
Yep.
Well, it's 37 degrees right now here, so you're colder than we are.
Is that right? You know what? one of the coldest days of my life. Well, one was in Toronto, but another one was in Montreal, and my friend.
Montreal gets really cold.
Yeah, it gets really cold. And my friend that lives up in Canada, Andy Cherna. Andy, if you're listening, I love you, brother. And we were in Montreal, and we were there. I'm gonna say it should have been summer. It was like May, right? And it was cold. You know, it was cold. It was like 40 degrees, and everybody in Montreal, shorts, sandals, tank tops. And he goes, man, this is it, man. We enjoy it when it's happening, and that's how.
Oh, I know. Hey, I once rented a convertible in Orlando, and I took the kids to Disney World in November once, and everybody thought I was nuts, but we were driving around. It was okay. And I don't know what the temperature is in Las Vegas today, but during that debate, everybody's got winter coats on, so.
Yeah.
I don't know what the temperature is.
No, we freak out, man. It gets down to 60. We bundle up, man. Gloves, scarves.
I know. I haven't worn any gloves yet this year.
Now, I want to go back to that point that you made earlier, and it kind of freaked me out. Especially as a Canadian, I don't know if I could spot the difference between Canadian Armed Forces and American Armed Forces, but Canadian Armed Forces, you know what they look like. So if you see somebody walking around in American military garb, they're not Canadian, right?
Oh, yeah. And this guy said he was with the Air Force, too, so he was quite sure he was. But why he was there, I don't know.
Well, not a common occurrence in Canada, I would assume, to have a foreign military on your soil.
No, I especially in the middle of nowhere. But in a tobacco field in southwestern Ontario. The interesting thing is that I found that there was a story written on this in the National Enquirer at the time. But I contacted them, and their files don't go back to 1975, so I couldn't find out what they actually wrote about.
And what about, I'm going to paraphrase here, the Brantford Times or the Brantford News?
Brantford Expositor.
Yeah, there you go.
Just one story, that was it, and I don't think they ever did another one.
I tried to look it up a while ago, a couple of years ago. I remember reading about this and checking out your book. And I went, and there was nothing online about it. You can't, for Brantford, I can't remember the name of the newspaper, but I couldn't find, I got blank pages, and I couldn't find anything in that period.
Yeah, no, I had to go to the local library to look up stuff on microfiche to just see if there was whatever was going on. But, after that first story, it sort of just disappeared. And
is Joe?
But everybody seemed to know in the town. It was it's one of those things that there's only 100 people living here, so I guess 100,000 people knew about it, but me.
Right? Is Joe still with us?
No. In fact, almost everybody connected with this thing is dead. The OPP officer, he died. The forensic guy that took the intake, his name was given to me, but he's dead. Charles, the DA, he's died. Most of the Border family is no longer around here. I did find a nephew who somehow inserted himself into the story when I was talking to him. He says he was there that day with Joe, and that he doesn't believe in flying saucer, and he thinks it was some kind of experimental military aircraft that landed on the field. But the strange thing is, Joe never mentions to anybody in any of the documents that I was able to find out that there was anybody but him there that day. So it's basically his word against everybody else's word. So
is there any Air Force bases around there?
No. There's a small municipal airport, and the Hamilton Airport is it's an international airport, but it's nowhere like Toronto's international airport. There was no reason for any military to be in the area or anything like that. 1975 was an interesting year, though, because when I was doing research to see what else was going on, I found it was a year when a lot of military bases were buzzed by UFOs, and the Travis Walton happened that the same year.
Right.
So, it was a year where everybody was seeing them, so I don't know if there's a connection to that or not.
Well, we have...
The other interesting thing is that people since who've seen the book have come up to me to tell me that, they thought they saw something in the skies that night, and when the police came knocking at their doors, they all said, "Oh, we didn't see anything." Like, nobody wanted to go on record and they just pretended that Joe was just some crazy guy. But a lot of people did see it, and they just never came forward at the time.
We've got about 5 minutes left, Bob, and what I wanted to have you share with us is a couple more of your, more intriguing close encounter cases out of the two books. You keep hitting your telephone.
I know. It's. I'm trying to talk without leaning against the phone, but. Well, we don't have enough time to go over what Cinta, Asia, and Narata is all about, but it's in my book, What If Close Encounters of the Unusual Kind. And in a nutshell, she's a law enforcement officer from Nova Scotia who claims to be in telepathic communication with the beings that we call the Greys, although they're not called that. She says they're called the Rata crew. And she has been given insight into their society, their life, their government, where they're from, why they're here, and all the myths and facts that have been misleading everybody all this time, that they are not an evil, sinister race, but they're a benevolent race that created mankind. And she, has told me so many things. She's quite a good artist too, and she has a lot of images in the book. And there's a lot of things that I struggle with believing, but because one of the things she says is that the Erratiku are the only alien species that have ever visited Earth, and so people that have seen mantids and seen reptilians and seen hooded creatures. It's all a figment of their imagination. So I struggle with what she's telling me, but I don't know what to make of her. She is just an unusual lady who has never told this story to anybody but me. And if you get a chance to read the book, it's just some things make sense and other things don't make sense.
She also had some interesting things to say. Ataraku had said about Area 51.
Yeah. She says that that she believes that there's a partially intact one of their spaceships is still there, and it was where they had they stored the bodies of the 7. I call them Greys still, that crashed at Roswell. She does admit that Roswell did happen, and she missed that the Battle of L.A. happened. But she insists that Rendlesham Forest didn't happen. And she also says that Travis Walton didn't happen, which is really strange because I think people who have met and interviewed him, he's one of these people who, he believes it happened, and he's had lie detectors and all this stuff. So I don't know what to make of some of her claims. Some of them seem interesting enough that they could be true, but again, if what she is telling me is absolutely true, then everything we have always thought about aliens and why they're here and who they are is completely false. And if that's the case, who is making us believe this?
It's a great chapter in the book, and she points out a few different things that the whole Rendlesham. It's interesting that she would say what she has said. I know Travis. I've been with him in person and also on the show a few times. And I can look straight into his eyes and talk to him, and I know that something happened to him. He is somebody somebody that's been deeply affected to this day. But there's the other side of Rendlesham, where Jim Pennison says that craft was us from the future. And it's strange how she says that Rendlesham didn't happen, and then you have the Peniston part of the story that craft was there, but it was us. It was us from the future.
Yeah, and Larry Warren, the other guy that's sees it in another part of the base, where he actually sees an alien communicating with a high-ranking general.
Well, there was many witnesses to that, but yeah, Larry Warren was part of that crew. Absolutely. Hey, Bob, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. Absolutely fascinating conversation.
And the book's available on Amazon.com.
And your website is, once again?
BobMitchellWriter.wordpress.com. And if anybody's going to be up in the Brantford area next summer at the Alien Cosmic Expo, I'll be doing a PowerPoint on Cinta Asia Narata and my book.
Thank you so much, and I can't wait to get you back on. We barely scratched the surface tonight.
Yeah,
Bob.
we should do a whole thing on Cinta.
Yeah, and we should. You're absolutely right. Thank you so much, and stay warm up there.
You guys should stay warm.
Thank you so much, Bob. Have a great, safe rest of your evening.
Thanks very much, Jimmy.
Thank you. Bob Mitchell, everybody. The website is right there. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com. Easy enough. Click on Bob's name. It'll take you straight over there. All three of his books are linked right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Amazing reads, amazing writer. Check out What If. It is just, it's unbelievable. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be back with more right after this. Stay with us.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter, but listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hi, folks. Ray Hobbs here with KGRA to tell you about something very special taking place in February 2016. I'm talking about the Space and Alien Snowfest Ufology Conference taking place at the beautiful ski and snowboard resort city of Big Bear Lake in sunny Southern California. We've got Richard Dolan, Chase Kletzky, Micah Hanks, Jason Martell, Jimmy Church, Linda Moulton Howe, Mike Barra, and keynote speaker Stanton Friedman will be presented a Lifetime Achievement Award. George Norrie and his producer Tom Danheiser from Coast to Coast AM Live will be with us all weekend. After the hectic holidays, gift yourself a retreat on top of the world the first weekend in February 2016 with a one-of-a-kind ufology event featuring some of the top minds in the field. Take advantage and book your lodging early and get your tickets now and register at aliensnowfest.com. I'll be there. Don't miss out.
Hello, Fadernauts. Are you looking for that perfect gift for the holidays? Well, check this out. The Studio Dome surround sound system featuring the Studio Dome 1 SD1 and the Studio Boombox SBB wireless Bluetooth speakers is the perfect way to get surround sound without all of the cable headaches. With its own hard shell custom carrying case for taking your surround sound experience on the go. Each hard shell case comes packed with an SBB, 2 SD1s, cables, and power. Just in time for Christmas. It's just $99. And you use the promo code Jimmy and you get yourself some free shipping. Once again, Studio Dome brings you the best Christmas deal on the net. Anywhere. Just go to the Studio Dome banner, jimmychurchradio.com, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Tuppy.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRAradio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Thank you, Bob Mitchell. Absolutely fascinating conversation. Wow. got to check out that latest book, What If. I'm about 75% of the way through it, and I kind of skipped around too as well. It is a fascinating read, and go check it out. And you can get it on Amazon, and the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Now, I'm not going to say who, what, when, where, why. I'm not going to do it, but I just saw a tweet from Anonymous. Oh, man. And we can't retweet it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. But I saw it. Wow. And if any of you want to retweet it, that's on you. But nobody from this camp is going to retweet it. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. But I've seen it. And, wow. It's from Anonymous. Okay. Wow. What a fascinating conversation tonight. But I've got a few things that I've got to go over with my good friends out there. And one is this. The United States and Russia have had an anti-ISIS Daesh Syria meeting. Yeah, and our media is not covering it. It happened in Moscow today with John Kerry and Putin discussing on how to defeat Daesh. While almost no details of the session have been made available, and our media is not covering it, the U.S. State Department press release outlined early exchanges between Putin and Kerry, revealing that defeating the Islamic State is of the highest priority. But it's funny. No U.S. media is reporting anything. And I just have to say, it's interesting, isn't it? Go and check it out for yourself. It happened today. The FAA has announced drone owners must register by February 19th, 2016. That's right. The regulation of drones has arrived. It is now in the hands of civilian pilots to take the big step now. The Federal Aviation Administration has announced that all units weighing between a half a pound and 50 pounds must be registered by February 19th, 2016. Anyone caught flying without proper registration after that date are going to face some stiff penalties. The FAA says civil penalties include a fine of up to $27,500. Criminal penalties include a fine up to $250,000 and 3 years in the slammer. The registration will include a $5 fee, but the FAA says it is waiving that for the first 30 days in an effort to get people to register. Registrants will need to provide their name, home address, and an email address. Upon completion, you're going to get a certificate of aircraft registration, proof of ownership that will include a unique identification number that's got to be marked on your aircraft. You get caught after February 19th, $27,500? That's a civil penalty. Criminal penalty, $250,000 and 3 years in jail. Wow. Unbelievable. Twitter Inc. issued an alert that some of its users have been hacked by, are you ready? Washington. Yes. State-sponsored hackers have tried to obtain sensitive data from Twitter accounts. The company has announced the first such warning by Twitter. The notice said that there was no indication that the hackers obtained sensitive information from what it said were a small group of accounts that were targeted. It did not provide additional information about the attack or possible suspects in the investigation. Twitter's notice is the latest amid concern about cyber attacks by state-sponsored organizations. Government agencies, businesses, and media have all been hacked. How's that? How you feeling? You feeling weird? Check this out. A new website CRSreports.com is cracking open Congress's secretive in-house think tank with a free, publicly accessible archive of 33,000 research reports on public policy, all of it from issues that include the United States Postal Service to Bitcoin. www.CRSreports.com. You heard it here first. Journalist at the Las Vegas Review. Now just listen to this. Journalists at the Las Vegas Review-Journal described the newsroom there as somber and confused as of yesterday. Why? As a seemingly simple question remained unanswered. Who bought the newspaper for 140 million ducks in cash last week? Remember, this is a newspaper. Several of the paper's journalists used Twitter to offer protests against the new owner's lack of transparency, including a number who sent messages that linked to the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics, which includes a section on transparency. Well, New Media Investment Group, the company that bought the Review-Journal as part of a package of newspapers for $102 million earlier this year, announced that it had sold the paper. A company called News Plus Media Capital Group, LLC, paid $140 million for the Review-Journal. Now, News Plus Media Capital Group was incorporated in Delaware on September 21st. This is December 15th, folks. And according to its certificate of formation, named on the document is one Michael Schroeder. Now, he was reached at his office yesterday, but he declined to comment on the identity of the buyer or buyers or to discuss anything else about the situation at the Review-Journal. Now, how can you be a responsible newspaper and not tell your own staff of journalists and investigators and researchers who owns the paper? Now, why is that a concern for somebody like me? What if it was Monsanto? Okay? What if it was a Republican or Democrat lobbyist group? Somebody that wants to steer the direction of the newspaper or change the honest journalism that is going on there, or influence the journalists there, or fire the journalists there for not publishing the articles that they want written. Think about this for a second. We have a constitution in place, and freedom of the press is part of that. I'm concerned. Now, moving on. While the world was hammering out a historic agreement to curb carbon emissions, over in Paris, urged along by California, no less the state was dealing with what here in California? Its own embarrassing belch burp of its own. Methane, a greenhouse gas 70 times more potent than carbon dioxide, has been leaking out of a natural gas storage site right here in Southern California for nearly 2 months. And it hasn't been fixed and is not going to be fixed until spring. How much? The site is leaking up to 145,000 pounds of methane per hour. And this is according to directly from the California Air Resources Board. In just the first month, that's added up to 80,000 tons, or about a quarter of the state's ordinary methane emissions over the same period. The Federal Aviation Administration has banned all flights flying over the site. Why? Because methane and ignition equals boom. A big boom. And this has been Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want to thank Bob Mitchell for coming in tonight. I got to thank my man, Ronnie McMullen, for coming in tonight. That was great, actually, wasn't it? Good questions, too. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, Jonas, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Fadey by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro is Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJC here for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is by KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me right now on Twitter at JChurchRadio. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2015 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Tomorrow night, right here, Jim Mars. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want everybody to be safe. Go Backley Tappy.